Easter's still fairly quiet. It's cool, isn't it? They're good at that. They make it look different. Only time I ever do that is in my dreams.
Yeah. All right, it's 5 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. We're going to start with a roll call.
Scott Counter.
Present.
Carrie Rice.
Present.
Ryan Shirley.
Present.
Jerry Van Someren.
Present.
Sean Anderson.
Present. All right, move to approval of the minutes. We'll let those stand as is unless someone has a correction or an addition they would like to make. All right, with that being said, those will stand as called. Now move to public comment. I would ask that if you have, if you want to comment on something that's here, one of the 5 public hearings, which includes Chapter 11, that you wait until we get to the public hearing. I would also ask that if you want to comment on the solar project, that we wait until that agenda item. There will be a separate discussion for that agenda item at that time. Separate public comment for that agenda item. That being said, would anyone like to make a public comment on something that's not a public hearing or solar related? Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Celeste Cobrel. I live in the town of Hudson. I have left flyers for 2 events here. Encourage people to take them. One is an informational meeting on Tuesday, September 23rd on large-scale solar. It's sponsored by the Wisconsin Farmers Union, St. Croix Cures. There'll be speakers providing just factual information about how does the whole process work for reviews of this. There'll be information about how the Public Service Commission works, what the Wisconsin DNR looks at, ways communities have addressed concerns. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, 5 o'clock. There's food. Program starts at 5:30 to 7:30 if you're there in person. It's also going to be virtual participation, and I believe they're going to be able to record it because it's at the Technical College in New Richmond. So if you can't make it, you can watch it later. And the other one is an in-person event on Saturday, October 4th on the St. Croix River Watershed, Clean Food and Clean Water. That's going to be at the YMCA camp on the St. Croix and Hudson. They'll be great. Please join us. Help spread the word. Then I have a comment on just one of your agenda items. I would say, please do pass the proposed amendment to the Chapter 11 Manure Storage Facilities Ordinance so that land spreading agreements have to be made with the owner of the land. It's good for protecting private property rights. It's also good for protecting our public waters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any public comment on something that's not a public hearing or solar related, because those will have separate discussions or public comment periods? Everything I'm seeing is solar or public hearing. Seeing no more discussion on items that aren't those 6. And again, if you fill out a form, that's Chapter 11. That's all right. Seeing as there's nothing else that aren't those 6 items, we'll now start the public hearing number 1, the rezoning request for Bauer Section 17, Town of Warren.
Good afternoon, committee members. Mr. Chairman, the first public hearing tonight is for a rezoning in the town of Warren. Let me just get to it real quick here. The applicants are Cindy Brown Bauer. Co-applicant is Matthew Bauer. The subject property is located at 1010 Highway 12, as I mentioned, in the town of Warren. The applicant seeks to rezone 3 acres of their property from R2 residential to the C2 commercial district. The C2 zoning district is being sought to allow a farm-based craft distillery operation where the product of the farm and other sources will be used to create a craft whiskey and other distilled spirits. The current zoning of R2 does allow most ag uses in residential subdivisions, but does not allow distillery or brewery uses. The C2 commercial zoning district provides for rural and agricultural tourism and entertainment uses, along with certain outdoor recreation activities. And this is different than our C3 district. The C3 district is the more active uses like convenience stores or office projects. So the C2 district does focus on the agricultural and lower volume traffic uses that would occur usually throughout the week. Pending approval of the rezoning by the committee and board, the applicant would have to come back to the committee for a conditional use permit. And during this process, there would be more specific site plan and operational detail discussion. So tonight, we're just focusing on the rezoning. Real quickly, we'll take a look at a few location maps. You see at the point of the red dot, the properties off of Highway 12, just west of the village of Roberts, and about 2 miles north of I-94. A little bit of a deeper dive look at the property, the 3 acres outlined in red. The current house is at the point of the arrow with the white roof. You have a couple barns and an outbuilding. There are 2 other agricultural buildings that will not be part of the rezoning process. And then this is a street view, Google Street View looking north from Highway 12, and you see the elevation of the property does go up slightly off of Highway 12 to the north. Surrounding land uses, we take a look at the zoning map for the town of Warren. Everything around the subject properties are R2. You have some R1 zoning to the east, which allows lesser density residential and most ag uses. Next, we take a look at the comprehensive plan for the town of Warren. Under state statute, rezonings are required to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And basically, a comprehensive plan is a series of maps, goals, and objectives that helps guide the future growth of a jurisdiction. And in this case, the town of Warren just recently updated their comprehensive plan. So they did have a chance to take a look at this area of the town, and we posted a snippet of their map with the subject property shown in with the red dot. And based on the key in the map, the town designates this for future rural living. And they go on to describe this category as accommodating residential and ag uses, along with some limited small scale and home-based businesses, which do not disrupt the rural character of the area. And we'll see a little bit further on that the town used this finding to support their recommendation for this rezoning. Next, we take a look at the county future land use map. The county designates this area as mixed rural agriculture, again, protecting the integrity of the agriculture area, protecting existing farm and forestry operations, promoting further investments in farming, and to preserve the rural character of the area. Next, we take a look at the county natural resource plan to see if the rezoning has any impacts on natural resource features. And frankly, we don't see any impacts. The subject property is in blue on the map. There is no environmental corridor, prairie remnant sites, or sensitive areas. The next map we take a look at, we don't see any shoreland areas, wetlands, or floodplain areas on the subject parcel. The next map takes a look at some steep slopes, and there are some steep slopes on the property in the 12 to 20% and over 20% range. The county does have zoning provisions that would require permits if these areas were impacted. However, as part of the application process, the applicant indicated there would be minimal surface enhancements or grading. In other words, they'll be using the existing site, existing buildings, and pretty much maintain the grade that's out there. Next, we take a look at the governmental agency review. The town of Warren Town Board met to review this application, and they recommended approval at their July 21st, 2025 meeting. A number of policies were cited from the town plan and the county plan, such as supporting agriculture, agritourism, and related ag service industries within the community, support efforts which increase the viability and diversity of agriculture throughout the county. And then in our recently adopted St. Croix County Comp Plan, the county does support new and existing businesses that utilize local agricultural products. Applicable statutes and criteria, making sure that the rezoning is consistent with the county comprehensive plan. We talked about the local comprehensive plan earlier. Making sure that the use is consistent with the natural resource plan. We just took a look at a few of those maps and we don't see any conflicts with that. And that the rezoning and proposed use is consistent with the St. Croix County ordinance. And again, we have provisions that the applicant will have to follow as they proceed through the process, should the rezoning be approved. Another requirement is that the town has approved the rezoning request and that the rezoning does not constitute spot zoning. So based on staff review, town review, staff would recommend approval of the rezoning for the following findings: that the town of Warren and St. Croix County comp plans include the future land use map designations and descriptions that support the rezoning change to a C2 commercial, that the rezoning does not conflict with the St. Croix County Natural Resource Management Plan, and that the town of Warren has formally recommended approval of the application. As required by law, the county posted a Class 2 notice in the Hudson Observer, the official paper for the county. We also sent notices to everybody within 300 feet of the subject property, and we did not receive any public comment as a result of that. So that concludes the overview of this request.
Thanks, John. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this rezoning, either for or against? Yes, please step up. State your name and what municipality you live in.
Yep. Thank you very much. My name is Matt Bauer. I'm leading this project with my stepmom, Cindy, and just wanted to give a brief overview of what we're kind of planning for the area and the purposes for that really quick. So really, we're trying to just establish a small craft-sized distillery that will really use the produce from that land, as Mr. Hilger said, to provide an additional revenue stream for the land, allow us to keep the buildings maintained, keep the farm feeling like a farm, feeling like a rural property, and then also to provide a location for some of the locals to be able to come in and visit. We are planning a cocktail room or a porch that people can come out and sit on and have a beverage, and really just to keep the farm in our family. So my stepmom's the third generation living on that land right now. Her mom passed away a couple years ago, and so we've been trying to decide what to do with the property over that time. They live in the adjoining house that's just to the west of there. And we really enjoy the land and we want to keep it in the family for the following generations. And this is one idea that we had. I've been active in home brewing for over 20 years. I am brewing part-time commercially right now. And so it's something that I feel we can take on and make successful, and it fits in with kind of the local flavor of Roberts as well. We are keeping it small. We're planning to start with about 1,000 cases a year, which sounds like a lot, but is actually a very small amount for a distillery, and maximize at about 5,000 cases a year, which again, very small, but the land there will be able to provide all of the grain that we would need to do that outside of malted barley, which we would have to import. Outside of that, that's really the big kind of overview executive summary that I wanted to present. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any from the board or the committee, sorry.
Questions? No. No, if some come up during the discussion, you can come back up and answer, but.
Appreciate it, thank you very much.
Yep, thanks. Any other member of the public want to comment on this rezoning? Any other public comment on this rezoning? Any other public comment on this rezoning? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll go to business item number 1, ordinance to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance in the town of Warren. Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
I will make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance from R2 to C2 commercial.
Second, Supervisor Connor.
I'll second that.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions or discussion, Supervisor Van Summer? Go ahead.
I just have one question. Should this be commercial or ag tourism? What would differentiate between these two zonings? John would probably be the man to answer that.
So in our C2 zoning district, we have a list of permitted uses, conditional uses. We also have a purpose statement that we touch on in the beginning of the memo, but it does talk about the C2 district allowing agricultural, tourism-related uses, as well as agricultural entertainment, the wedding barns and things like that. And again, C2 is differentiated from our other commercial districts. C2 is more rural-oriented, not the convenience store, not the office type of uses. It fits in more with the agricultural fabric of the rural county area.
Thank you, I just wondered.
Yep.
In my mind, it could go either way, and
And C2 is very limited in what we allow for permitted uses. C3 is very broad and expansive. C2 is tailored to the agricultural tourism, agricultural entertainment, and outdoor recreation uses, so.
Any other thoughts or questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'm ready for a vote. All those in favor of this rezoning signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to public hearing number 2, conditional use permit for Freeman Miller in the town of Oak Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Freeman Miller has applied to operate a general store in the R2 zoning district in the town of Oak Alley. The address of the property is at 216 250th Street. The county did provide a Class 2 notice prior to this hearing in the official county newspaper, which is the Star Observer. And with that, I'll jump in. The property is 40 acres in size. The applicant's store is less than 1,000 square feet, so it does meet the conditional use permit standards within that R2 zoning district. They are currently operating it as Maple Lawn Bakery and Maple Lawn County Store. They sell a lot of just general baked goods, some of their homemade candies. A lot of the items are cooking ingredients that are bulk products that are brought in, broken into smaller quantities, and then sold on site. They do have a license from DATCAP, and that is good through March 31st of 2026 for the baked goods side of it. Basically, the store is very simple, and it has 3, I'll call them racks, that are roughly 8 feet long, and there's shelves on both sides of the racks. And that is what the products are. And then there's like another 4-foot shelf and that for candy, and another 4-foot shelf for some blankets and stuff that they've made or members of the community have made. So being that way, the property's actually been operating their general store since 2012. So it's been a long-term ongoing violation, and that our department has been working with, but it hasn't generated a lot of public health concerns or public nuisance concerns with the neighborhood. The store is basically staffed by the family that's on site at all times. And so the hours of operation here you'll see are pretty broad, and it's basically whenever anybody's home, and that the store is available. If somebody comes in, then they go and they help their customer and that with whatever they might need, but they are closed on Sunday. The expected traffic and truck traffic coming into the site is about bi-weekly, and that's for their deliveries. They usually get a couple, 2 to 4 pallets every other week. The truck has a docking station there, so it's done completely off the road. There is enough parking on site as well for any customers that might be there. Up to this point, and that we haven't received any complaints for the dust or any issues with the store. So this here is an aerial image of the 40 acres that you can see. The dark yellow here is zoned R2, so it is very compatible with the surrounding area being all zoned with R2. Again, it's got access off from a town road. This kind of gives you an idea where it is. It's south of County Road N and in between Double B and B in the town of Oak Alley. There is no special features in that on the site, like shorewinds, floodplains, steep slopes. Any wetlands are over 550 feet away, so that's not too much. Right here is a nice site plan of it. You can see the driveway coming in. So north would be towards the top of this map. Here is the house of the millers, and then here is the general store. The actual dock for the trucks to back in is kind of right here where my mouse is. The town of Galley has reviewed this CUP, and they approve of the CUP with the following criteria, conditions on the use. Is that all the truck deliveries are off-road, that they obey any seasonal weight restrictions on the road, that any public parking would be off the road, and signage would be at least 35 feet from the center of the road promoting the business. One of the things in my conversation with Jim One, the town chair, with O'Galley, is that they had previously required another general store within the town and that to have a fire inspection. And they are not requiring it on this application because the whole inside of the store is lined with pole barn steel and there is no stove or wood burning appliance within the store, and that there is a chimney there, but the applicant has said that they're not going to have any kind of heat appliance in that area. And that's what we've got for the staff report.
Thank you. I think if there are any questions from the committee, we'll take it after we hear from any member of the public. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this conditional use permit? Any member of the public that wants to speak on this conditional use permit? Any member of the public that wants to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll go to the agenda item number 2 to review the conditional use permit. Any questions, thoughts from the committee? Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
The town of O'Galley's conditions. The first 3 seem like there's no problem with it. Is there any signage on that last one that's in conflict with that now, or why did they, is that just a?
There isn't any signage currently on the site, but there has been some other issues with their signs and their roadside stands encroaching on the right-of-way throughout the county. And so I think that was mainly just in trying to prevent anything from becoming an encroachment in the future. With that, would you like to go through the conclusions of law? The findings of fact are basically just what I went through.
Yep.
So conclusions of law, we believe that the applicant states that there's no impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public. We believe that all the products on the store shelves and everything is very kept clean and doesn't seem to be a public health hazard there. They do have the DAT approval as well for the baked goods. With that DAT approval, there is like labels on everything with what the ingredients are. And so that is something to note. They are not selling any products that are flammable. And that, again, they don't have any burning appliances within there. We don't see any impacts on any water resources, surface or ground. There is no special environmental features, wetland, floodplains, or navigable waters. Basically, the site is already existing, so there's no environmental impacts like excavation that's going to be required for this. They're fronting on a public road with on-site parking, no on-road parking. The general store seems to be consistent with the ag area, and it supports the local Amish community, so they don't have to travel as far to get to the stores. And that's pretty much it for that. So with that, staff would suggest approval of the conditional use permit on the following 7 criteria. One is that they secure all approvals, whether it's local, state, or federal permits and approvals. Everything that would be located off from 250th Street for parking or the trucks unloading and loading. Vehicles associated and that shall obey all town road weight limits. All trash shall be contained on the property and kept in a neat, orderly manner. And then the last 2 are kind of our standard conditions, and that any new owners would also have to follow this conditional use permit criteria. We did talk with the applicant, and he was not able to be here tonight because he had other commitments, but he was okay with these 7 criteria.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
It's a question for you. With this, the truck traffic and, and any, is this set up just basically for their community, or does this take in aspects of other patrons that can patronize the facility?
Other patrons can patronize their store as well. In fact, when I was on site and that, there was some members of the public coming to buy eggs and stuff, so, yep.
Do you know, the only other question I have with it for the winter months, if they're patronizing the, other people and they have any commercial truck traffic for snow removal, ice control?
I can tell you in that I was out there in February of 2024 and everything was plowed at the time. I don't remember it being any ice or any safety concerns at that time, but everything was plowed out, even to the dock where the truck would back up to drop off product. So, yep.
I mean, those are more common sense type things, but just ensuring that, that those things would be regarded as a safety concern.
Okay. So would you like to add a condition here or another criteria in that, adequate snow removal and ice?
I'll leave that for comments from some of the other members, but I can just go either way on that. It's more, if they're doing it, I'm not looking to make this more complex than it needs to be, but we just want to ensure, I guess, I'm seeing heads nod, but.
Yeah. I can relay that to the applicant.
Just if I can speak to that, if they want to attract business, then they know already they have to keep it plowed. So they usually do a pretty good job of it, the ones that I've fixed things for. Either with their horse, they have a horse contraption that kind of plows, and then a lot of them have neighbors do it. So, yeah. So I wasn't worried about that one.
Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
The one thing that I talked about earlier from the town of O'Galley, the signage portion was the only one that didn't get on our list of 7 items.
We should add that then.
Yeah, we should.
We'll just make that decision bullet point number 8. Yep.
Okay. That was an oversight. Yep.
Any, yeah, go ahead.
So with that addition, I move that we go ahead and approve the conditional use permit for Freeman Miller, Section 22, in the town of O'Galley to operate a general store.
Do you have a second? Supervisor Summerlin with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No, it passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item 3, conditional use permit for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy Borntrigger has applied to operate a sawmill in the R1 zoning district, also within the town of O'Galley. The address of this property is 547 250th Street, Woodville. Prior to this hearing, we also published a Class 2 notice in the Star Observer, which is the official county paper, for 2 weeks prior to tonight. The committee is already probably a little familiar with this property because this property was recently rezoned from R2 to R1. And so that was just before you just a month ago. And so again, it's 35 acres. And Andy is currently operating a sawmill on the site. And the purpose of the sawmill is to produce grade lumber, railroad ties, and pallet lumber. They're generally working in that 4 days a week, usually only Monday through Saturday with no hours on Sunday. Sawing operations are basically the daylight hours, typically from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the max. So There is no outside employees in that working on site. However, sometimes if they've got an order that needs to meet, they might take and rely on a friend or some other kind of staff member to fill in. Also from the Amish community that is familiar with sawmills and how they operate. During the spring road ban period, they would not bring in any trucks, so they would follow any weight restrictions that are there. At the peak season and that there could be up to 5 trucks a week, and those 5 trucks would be total combined, and that with hauling in and hauling out, not 5 of each. The sawmill is currently being operated in the existing building and would continue to do so. They have a muffler on the engine. It's very similar to like a semi-truck engine, so it's not an excessive amount of noise. They have not received any complaints from any neighbors about the sawmill. They do have a sawmill shed that they take and blow the sawdust into, but usually they actually use chopper boxes and they blow the sawdust into the chopper box because they've got customers that buy it and want it in the chopper box versus loading it with a loader. The property is located on a dead-end road, so there's not a lot of traffic volume there. The applicant also owns the adjacent properties to the north and the east, and he doesn't believe that there will be any impact from the adjacent landowners. This property also fronts on I-94 to the south, so there is no immediate neighbors to the south either. Here's an aerial image. You can see that most of the property is currently tilled or under ag crops. And then here is the building where the sawmill is, and then the sawdust shed and the chopper boxes, when they're using that, are out in this area. So here's kind of a Google Earth image of it. You can see that sawdust shed. You can see that there was a lot of sawdust, and so we're hoping that the applicant now with this permit will be able to take and kind of contain that sawdust a little bit better. But you can see that there is, a substantial amount of logs and production here on site. The surrounding land area, so this is also Andy's farm right here. So he's got the farm just to the north with the sawmill. Just to the east here is the sewage plant, and that for the village. And then there is a couple of houses, but they're quite a ways off from the road, and that going to the west. And then, of course, the freeway to the south. There is no floodplains or steep slopes, not really any wetlands, but there is just a small pond over here on that east property line. The town of O'Galley also considered this CUP on their 9/8 meeting, and they have suggested the following. So they would like to see the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and that would be a change from the 8 p.m. Of course, they would want them to obey the road bans and that in the spring, and then any deliveries or pickups would have to be done off the road, and then must contain the sawdust on the property. So as with any CUP, they've got to meet the criteria within the ordinance for a CUP to be approved. And then we've got a findings of fact document for the committee to consider if there's public comment, after public comment. Any questions on this application?
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
One question I have for you, when typically in a either commercial or industrial application, when somebody's putting things in, the county has a requirement for screening, is that correct?
Correct, usually in commercial or industrial, yep.
Okay. So in a case like this, to be consistent with anybody else that are putting applications in for other things, would it be in our interest to consider the screening process for that, where not necessarily berming or doing anything excessive, but just, even just simple tree planting for future, so that would give a screening impact.
So that would be something that the committee could do, being that this property is zoned R1 and not commercial or industrial, and that it's not required by the ordinance, but if the committee thought that it would benefit the neighbors, and that to have some screening there, that could definitely be requested, and it could be something simple like some pine trees or something, and not an actual berm.
Yeah, not looking for, anything that's at a big expense, but just something, it would keep consistency with it for the future, and if they ever did change anything with zoning, but with the conditional use permit, there's no screening requirements?
No. And that's what you are able to take and look at each site individually and take and then evaluate what kind of conditions are needed in order to make that use allowable on the site and not impact the public health and safety of the surrounding property owners or the road or the traffic. That's the goal of a CUP, is to be able to look at that and determine what criteria are needed in order to offset the impacted use.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it for others to consider.
Yeah, I think we'll take public comment if there is any, and then we can review the findings of fact. That's all right. That's all right. That's okay. No problem. Is there any member of the public that wants to comment on this rezoning, either for or against? Yes, please.
Hi, David Kramer, Richmond Township. Was lucky enough in the past that I used to hunt on the other side of the road on that farm. That gentleman owns, that's a dead-end road that if you're going down 94, you can see the whole farm. You can see everything. So having them put it up, he owns both sides of the road. You can't, the next town road to the north, you can't see that property. So asking him to spend money to put up screening there, it's like he's about the only traffic that's coming down there would be him and his business and people that are in that business. I'd say hats off to all these folks out in that area that are trying to start businesses and do something in the county to increase the development and make money in this county. So trying to have them do stuff that, to me, really is just a rule that people, unless you've been down that road, would know that's just asking them to spend money for no reason, in my opinion. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Any other member of the public want to comment on this conditional use permit? Any other member of the public want to comment on this CUP? Any other public comment on this conditional use permit? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, move to the findings of fact, and then we can discuss.
All right. So Andy Borntrigger's finding of fact are basically what we just went through in the staff report. Conclusions of law, the applicant is going to take and contain the sawdust. They're using chopper boxes in the shed to do so. They're trying to control the noise with a muffler on the engine. Again, it's similar to a semi-truck engine. The sawmill building and site improvements are already there. Again, this is an existing use and that has been out there for a while, so we don't anticipate any other filling and grading on site, no stormwater concerns. There's no critical environmental features like wetlands or floodplains on the water, just that small pond to the east. The access to the road is a town road. It's a dead-end road too, so that kind of helps with the traffic volume and that based on the truck traffic. The need of the proposed use, the surrounding use is ag land mainly, and so silviculture or forest businesses also kind of fit that agricultural character. Covered that one. It's going to be predominantly operated by family members, so there's not a lot of other demands for septic or other uses on site. They are not going to be doing any wood treatment there. Everything is sold untreated. And they try to take and have most of their lumber stored inside now, and that especially during the spring road ban periods. So with those conclusions of law and findings of fact, we suggest approval of the conditional use permit request on the following conditions. The applicant shall operate the sawmill, which we're considering a forest products processing use in conformance with the details and supporting information included in the CUP application. The applicant is responsible for securing any necessary local, state, or federal permits. That's kind of our catch-all to make sure that they're complying with any other town requirements as well. Everything will be done off from 250th Street, so no parking or no deliveries on the road. Vehicles are going to be obeying the town road weight limits. Property will be contained in that and kept neat and orderly with all the trash picked up. You can see our hours of operation here, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. That's what the town of O'Galley requested. And that the last two here are just our standard criteria again, so.
One thing I want to mention right off the bat is that it says with the 200, should that with and 0.4 be within, I think, and not within the 250 street right away?
Yeah, within.
Yeah. Yep. But otherwise, yeah. Any opinions on screening? I think with the dead end road, it's not necessary. It's also forest products. It's not exactly unattractive to look at, right? As long as the sawdust is contained. Any thoughts, comments, questions? No? Sure.
All right. I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit based on our 9 items for the for Andy Bontrager for the town of O'Galley to operate a sawmill.
Second, Supervisor Rice. Any further discussion? That ready for a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to public hearing number 4, conditional use permit for Levi Miller in the town of Katy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before we get into this one, I would just like to take and say that these 3 were all Amish conditional use permit request. We've got a current court order, court action, and that going with the Freeman Miller request. And so we wanted to speed up these applications and that for that court process. And so Levi Miller's application came in at the same time, and we wanted to handle them all together. However, the town of Katy and that Mike Tully, the town chairperson, reached out after they had gotten the application materials and said that they would like some more time to go over this with the applicant. And so, but the county, we have already published it for the hearing and stuff. So I think I would like to take and run through the staff report quickly. And that we can open it up for any public comment in case somebody came tonight. And then, but ultimately, staff is going to suggest postponing this application for another month, and so that we take it up at the October Community Development Committee meeting. So, but with that, Levi Miller has applied to operate a sawmill in the R1 zoning district in the town of Katy. The address of this property is 3105 50th Avenue in Knapp. Again, we provided the Class 2 hearing notice for this request in the Star Observer, the official county newspaper, prior to tonight's meeting. This property is 23.54 acres in size. The property is located at the intersection of 50th Avenue and 310th Street. They're proposing to operate the sawmill 3 days a week on average, varying based on the time of the year and the amount of orders that they have. They don't intend to have any outside employees to start, but they could eventually bring on 1 to 2 part-time employees to help with the sawmill business. Expected truck traffic will be 1 to 3 loads per week. Again, that is a total delivery and haul out. That is not for delivery and haul out separate. The applicants believe that there's no impact to the rural character or of the surrounding properties. The applicant also says in their application that it's compatible with the current agricultural use and character of the surrounding area. And they believe that wood processing is a historical use of the land. The noise from the sawmill will be also limited by the muffler on the saw operation, and they will only be working during daylight hours. Again, they want to operate from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they will comply with any road weight bans in the spring. The applicant is going to handle their sawdust, but they don't really come out to say how, like Andy Borntrigger did there. They said that they would be removing the sawdust as the pile gets larger and they would be using that sawdust for bedding and compost material by other members of the community. So with that, you can kind of see the property here, and that is the proposed sawmill site, just north of 50th Avenue. The applicant did start to construct the building, but the sawmill operation has not started yet out of this facility. It was actually an agreement that our office had worked with the Amish in November, December of last year to build this building to be able to store their, supplies and equipment in over the winter. And they have not operated up to this point. So they have followed through with that promise. There's no environmental features that are of a concern on the site as far as wetlands, floodplain, or waterways. I-94 is directly north of the property. The area to the west is vacant land. There is one house here kind of in the middle, and then there is a couple other scattered residential properties around. And so again, here, the town of Katie's next meeting, and that they're actually meeting tonight on it, and then their board meeting will be October 6th. And that, of course, and that any CUP application has to meet all the standards applicable to CUPs out of the ordinance. And then we would have a document for you with findings of fact and conclusions of law with that. So that summarizes the staff report on this one.
All right. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this conditional use permit? Any public comment on this conditional use permit? Any public comment on this conditional use permit? Seeing none, we'll close that. Move to the agenda item 4 for this conditional use permit in the town of Katy. Unless there's opposition, I'm going to suggest that we just postpone until the October meeting, until we get to hear from the town of Katy.
Yeah. Again, we shortened up the time frame and that the town had because of that other court case, and we thought maybe the Amish would all want to ride together here. And so, but I think it's appropriate to give the town some opportunity to make comment.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
The only thing I might want to address though before that, so they can make plans too, is this. I think that we should insist there's a sawdust shed or something, because just a pile of sawdust blows around, and
Yep.
The other two ones that we've done already, they have a sawdust shed or.
We've got
shop
that in
outside.
our
I think that should be a
condition
directive
list
of
and
ours.
that for you. Yep.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Carr.
The other thing, if we could have them apply for a address.
okay, address.
This
Okay.
property doesn't have an address yet, and I know they have the shed, but for fire protection and everything else, you really need a rural address.
I'll make
out
sure
there.
that we have that in the proposed criteria as well.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, we'll let this stand till October. All right. I think, we'll just move to, I'm gonna shuffle around the agenda a little bit. I'm gonna move agenda item 7, unless there's opposition, to 6, because that's the last public hearing. We'll take the continued public hearing and then do the last public hearing, and then talk about the grant.
Can I do just one quick update? So this Levi Miller application is the last application that we were working with the Amish and that to apply for. And so we've still got outstanding sanitary concerns with the Amish, and we're working with them and the state DSPS office on it. But so far, and that this wraps up all of the outstanding violations that we've got. So there has been great progress from the Amish and that, and their willingness to comply.
Sweet, that's great. So let's go to business item 5, then the decision for the CUP request for Norris in the town of Warren.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did receive email from Gino Hansen, which is the town of Warren chair, and he, and that had some comments on the proposed use. The applicant has since been working with the town of Warren to take and try to resolve some of the town's concerns. The applicant has already stopped using the home site there for any of the repairs on the equipment and stuff. So in other words, there's no violation as far as the use on site right now. But he would like a little bit more time in that to bring the property into compliance with what the town would like. And so the town, and that will be talking about this at their October meeting. And so we'd like to postpone this one to the October Community Development Committee as well, to allow the applicant and the town to work out some of their ideas and their suggestions to mitigate the impact of the proposed use.
And October is enough time for everybody? I think so. I mean, we can always delay it again, right? So yeah, any objection to moving this one to October as well? All right, we'll now go to public hearing number 5, the consideration of amendments to Chapter 11 manure storage facilities. That was agenda item 7 originally, Jason.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So with this, the committee has seen this several times. We amended Chapter 11 in the last year here, but the 2 small tweaks to this ordinance would be to change the duration of operation permit from 1 year to 2 years. That would then align with our sanitary permits and our land use permits, basically all the other permits that our office issues. And then 2 would be to require any manure application or byproduct land application to have an agreement signed by the landowners identifying the fields within that nutrient management plan. And we, at the last meeting, went through a table of what that might look like. It was fairly simple. And so that table would be what we would be requesting of a manure storage pit facility through the nutrient management plan to provide us, so that the property owners are aware that their property is going to have manure application.
We'll take comments after the public comment, I think. All right. So I have a few public comment cards. I'll ask for people who haven't submitted public comment after that. But this is, again, the amendment to Chapter 11, the new storage ordinance. We're going to start with John Gostovich. After John is Sue Curtis.
I am John Gostovich. I live in the town of Hudson. I'm glad that this has come around again. I really like the proposed method for demonstrating that the landowner is aware of how his or her property is likely to be impacted by the spread of manure. And I think that provides some reasonable protection, doesn't seem to be one bit burdensome, and this sort of ties up the whole process in what I consider to be a pretty clean and simple knot. So I'm glad it's before you. I urge you to adopt it as is, and I think that this is a good step for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sue Curtis. And I have one more, but I don't have an, oh, there it is. Yep, it's Virginia Drafts after Sue.
Hello, my name is Sue Curtis, and I live in the town of St. Joseph. You've probably heard me multiple times before. I support the land spreading agreements in this, and I also wanted to share the urgency that I've been reading about and researching more. So in the most recent Baldwin nitrate screening clinic in June of 2025, they found that 37% of the treated wells exceeded the 10 milligrams per parts per million for the county average. So it shows me that we are increasing our nitrate contamination. So it's an urgent thing that we need to act on this. And these landowner agreements are just a small portion of the things that we need to do. A newly published report, which I sent to you just recently, came from the Great Lakes Alliance in Clean, Wisconsin. They found that now in Wisconsin, nitrate contamination is a statewide concern, since especially in the rural areas. And they outline a number of different things that we can do, and I'd like to entertain the idea that we continue to work on this as well as approving this tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Virginia?
Good evening. My name is Virginia Drath. Live in Emerald Township. I agree with the amendments to Chapter 11, except I don't agree with the current CAFOs being grandfathered in. The initial goal was to get written consents from landowners. You may never see some consents if not all CAFOs get the information. Not all CAFOs need a new permit or plan to expand. Grandfathered situations can easily be forgotten. Perhaps maybe a sale of the current owner never got a landowner's consent from begin with, and the new owner might not know. Would you consider giving all CAFOs in St. Croix County a year to update signed agreements? Then the county and the landowners will recognize accountability. Just a couple weeks ago, manure was being transferred from Pierce to St. Croix again. Some folks in my township of Emerald are wondering why and are asking, how do they keep track of manure? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from the public on this issue? Any other public comment on this ordinance? Any other public comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, move to business item, ordinance amending Chapter 11, manure storage facilities. Thoughts from the committee? Or questions? Yep, Supervisor Hurley.
I just had a question for Jason. All these NMPs are submitted annually. We're talking about a 2-year construction and operation permit, so none of our CAFOs are getting grandfathered in, correct?
And correct, every nutrient management plan, and that would have to follow the new standards.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So I would make a motion that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 11, manure storage facilities for St. Croix County ordinance, with the change that we are requiring the land application agreements to be signed by the landowners but we are not requiring them to be housed here. They have to have the land agreements. If we have issues, then we can require them. But we as a county don't need to house those here. We don't need to be burdened down with public records requests constantly for them. And I think that that is an appropriate action.
So I guess to clarify language or suggest language, and obviously this is your motion, Craig, but I think we should include what the language is. So you want to change shall also be submitted to shall be available upon request or something like that?
Under section 2, yes, that would be a summary. So line 13, a summary of table of all landowners with signed agreements and associated acres and contact information. How do we want to word that? Maybe a summary table of all landowners and associated acres and contact information shall be submitted. Signed agreements shall be made available if requested.
So just an additional sentence.
Right.
Okay. Do I have a second on that amendment, that motion?
I got a question on it. But
I'm gonna
we have
second
to
it.
wait.
I'm gonna second it for discussion, and then
Okay.
no, you ask your question. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think the purpose of what the intent was for this was to try to get the information to ensure that the landowners are acknowledging that they have this. And I understand, you know, the concern for public records, but there was, if I recall, during one of the last meetings, there was a draft of a overview sheet that they would turn in that had all the names of the landowners and where in the acreage sizes and because again, we don't need to know the information as far as what their contractual obligations are for the dollars and cents. That has no relevance here, but what we're trying to get is the ability to ensure that these landowners understand what the delivery rate is going to be on their property and that they have certain liabilities that come along with that potentially if there becomes a problem. So I think that was where we were, I think that's where we were trying to go with this, and I'll maybe let Jerry chime in on this too, but that is the number one concern, that we do have a tracking mechanism, that we have knowledge base that these homeowners have signed agreements and that we know that this is a fact from this breakdown sheet then that would give the total volume of all of the different acreage parcels that that particular operation is using.
So I can just add one little thing. So, and that it was not staff's intent to not include that sample form here as like we were trying to hide it or that we were going to try to change it. It just wasn't part of the ordinance. It's not in the ordinance and that, but it is still our intent to take and use that simple form. That simple form doesn't even have the application rate or the volume that might be applied. However, the nutrient management plan does. And so that could be a conversation that the producer could have with their landowner if they had questions on how much was there. But the nutrient management plans also are reviewed by our staff. And I think there's something in there that, you know, that per the approved nutrient management plan, you know, so that kind of gives the landowner some assurance that it's not going to be over application.
Go ahead.
So Jason, the nutrient management plan, does that have the people's names on it also? The homeowners' names on it?
No.
It does not. So then how do we ever monitor that?
It's,
What's the intent for monitoring sky?
it's identified in that by a field number, and that, so the field number is in the nutrient management plan, and that field number would also be in that agreement or that signed sheet, so, yep.
Okay, but if the producer doesn't actually get the okay of that landowner, then how are we going to know that if we don't know the landowner? And that's happening right now in Pierce County, and that's why I say that. You know, I think we have to have all of it. So I've talked to 2 of our producers since then, since this started like 3, 4, 5 months ago. And both of them said the same thing. This isn't a big deal. For them, it's not a big deal. So I guess I don't know why we're agonizing over it so much. Let's go with what it says and fine.
Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
I guess that's why I made the amendment the way I did. You're still going to get now a summary table of all the landowners that have signed agreements with them, the associated acres and the contact information. So we'll have that on top of what we have in the nutrient management plan as part of this amendment. We just won't have the actual signed contract.
Oh, I see. So you're saying we're gonna, I misunderstood your, I thought you wanted to eliminate that point.
No.
Because the county has to know whose land is going to go on.
Right. We just don't need the actual contract, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, okay. I shut my mouth.
Yep. I think that's prudent, and then if, someone lies, you have a way to go back to them, and if, the question of, does it need to be notarized, I think signature forgery is a criminal proceeding, right? So it's be above and beyond for something that's been a handshake, no more than a handshake for however many years, right? I think this as amended would be fine. I guess that was the first motion where you made that amendment, so I think we could just pass it with the vote as is, correct?
Correct.
Any further discussion on this? Oh, sorry, Supervisor Rice.
Yeah, my question has more to do, maybe for Jason. If this passes as proposed, a scenario in which perhaps one of your staff is out and there's obvious evidence of excessive nitrate spreading, will you have what you need in order to move forward and enforce compliance?
So I would say that we already have that ability, even though we don't have the signed contracts, because if they're excessively spreading, that would be in violation of their nutrient management plan.
And my follow-up is, for people who are not familiar with this, the concept of a nutrient management plan, could you just briefly explain what kind of incentives are there? I mean, this is a government subsidized program, and this rule would just help us to administer it. Is that correct?
Sometimes these are government subsidized, but sometimes it does come on the cost of the farmer, the producer, and that. But the goal of any nutrient management plan is to evaluate the practices of the farm, tillage practices, what kind of crop is coming off, what the current nutrient state is of that land for phosphorus, also potash, which never gets talked about, but that's something that they would consider as well. And then also T-loss, that which is soil erosion loss. And basically there's a state program. We just got a new form of it actually that rolled out, and our staff went to training on it last week. It's called SNAP Plus. And so they're able to put that information in there, and basically it'll tell them if that practice is going to be allowed on that land for the application rate and the soil erosion factor. So yes, it is checks and balances. I think it would be very misleading to say that if somebody wanted to cheat the system that they couldn't. And that because how many gallons, I mean, it's very hard to know how many gallons they're actually maybe putting on or how many tons exactly in that they're putting on. Not all farms have a scale on site. However, it's a very good educational tool, and they try to get really close, is what I would say, as close as you can. And it's getting better and better with new ag technology, variable rate applications, that kind of stuff. And so it's going to improve over time. And I don't think anybody's really purposely over applying as much as what they were in the past. So the county never really followed up on nutrient management plans. So as long as you submitted it, you were good to go. And that is something that we are following up now, and it's a lot of outreach and education on what it actually is.
Thank you.
Jason, one more question on that. So is this obligation for the nutrient management plans, is this basically just on these larger operations, or is this across the board, or is it just voluntary on the smaller operations? And if so, how do we, how can we motivate people to consider them on the smaller operations too, so we can get a higher performance rate? 'Cause I believe what's the percentage currently of tilled land that's being that nutrient management plans have been produced?
I can't tell you a percentage of tilled land exactly, because of course you got alfalfa rotations and everything else in there, but we've got about 45,000 acres of nutrient management plans and that within the county, which I would tell you, comparing it to our counterparts in surrounding counties around us, that number is very high. So that demonstrates that we do have a strong land and water department. And as far as incentivizing, like when we had the Will River trim, or now we've got the Kinney trim grant, what we're trying to do is incentivize producers to do nutrient management plans and to do the BMP practices. And so there is cost sharing available, and that to kind of get them into that fold, and hopefully they continue to do it even when we don't have that grant funding, because the real benefit of any nutrient management plan, fertilizers are getting very expensive. And so if the producer can see the benefit of doing that soil testing and that planning, hopefully that helps their bottom line. And so we do incentivize, like I said, when we've got funds available, and that to any size producer, and that CAFOs are required to do NMPs. And then with our current Chapter 11, any manure storage facility is also required to do NMP.
Jason, my understanding is we have 280,000 acres that are available for ag. We don't know how much is being tilled, but if all of it is, that gives us about 16% in a nutrient management plan. And we do have evidence now of excessive spreading and increasing nitrates when we're testing. So it does pose the question that follows up on Supervisor Counter's question of whether or not what we're doing right now is sufficient.
I mean, I think we're limited by what the state says we can do, right? So we can't enforce NMPs on operations that are too small for us to enforce NMPs on.
Yeah.
Especially if there's not a manure storage facility there. It's kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and some of it could be even pasture land and stuff in those acreages, so.
Sure, yep.
Yep.
Grazing land and stuff. Any further comment or questions or thoughts? Ready for a vote? All right. Seeing no further comment or questions, I think we'll call a vote. All is in favor of passing, approving Chapter 11, or recommending approval for Chapter 11 with the added sentence that Supervisor Shirley put in, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously, thank you. Now to what was originally business item number 6, the resolution of commitment and support for the TAP grant for Phase 4 of the Highway 35 off-road bike trail.
Yes, so this next agenda item is the Community Development Department seeking authorization to apply for a TAP grant. A TAP grant is a Transportation Alternatives Program grant through DOT, which covers 80% of project costs for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And going to our map, we just kind of want to show you what we've been doing. So the priority corridor that was identified in the state bicycle plan as well as the county bicycle plan was to connect the village of North Hudson through the town of St. Joseph, up to Holton, and then connect to the larger loop trail, which then connects to the larger Twin City Metropolitan Bicycle Trail. So to date, we have completed phase one, the 1 mile stretch that goes out of North Hudson to Eckert Bluffland that's shown in the solid purple. The dotted yellow gold line is another TAP grant that we secured approval for, and that's currently in the design phase with projects scheduled to be worked on beginning in 2027. And again, that's a 10-foot wide off-street bituminous trail. Phase 3, we were successful in securing a carbon reduction grant, which is a 1.28 mile section from County V, where phase 2 left off, up to 125th Avenue, which is about by Big Guy's Barbecue. And so the phase 4 application, and again, phase 3 is funded. We're going out for RFPs for design right now. And then phase 4 would be the final leg that would make that last connection up to Holton. And so that's the content of the resolution before you tonight, that staff is seeking you to authorize us to go ahead, make application for phase 4, which is due October 31st. So we have another 45 days to get that application in. And again, that would connect from 125th Avenue up to the County Road E64 roundabout at this location. The estimated project cost for this phase 4 is $1.7 million. The 20% county match would be $343,500. So that's an estimate. Using today's numbers, we built in some contingencies into that amount to pick up items that come up unexpectedly. But again, that's just a larger picture. And again, going south from North Hudson into Hudson, there's a sidewalk system that connects into the city of Hudson. And we go off the map here, but if you keep going south, that connects to the trail over the 94 bridge. And then when you get on the Minnesota side, that trail connects to the Highway 95 trail that goes all the way to downtown Afton. So when you look at the whole system from Afton up to the north, up to Stillwater, into the Twin Cities metro area, as it kind of connects into the northern part of St. Paul, it's about a 30-some mile connection. So really the premise of the trail, again, is for multimodal transportation to get people to use alternate forms of transportation. These will connect to services in the villages, whether they're parks, schools, and things of that nature. So again, it's a connection that's been prioritized in the county and state plans. So we think we have a good chance of getting the phase 4 grant. So we are excited to make application with your authorization. So the resolution before you tonight would authorize us to go forward with that application.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Vincent.
John, is that a off-road also, off-highway trail?
Phase 4?
Yes.
Yes.
So it'd be all the way from North Hudson to the crossover bridge would be off-road. Okay, thank you.
The speeds of Highway 35 dictate an off-road facility. Most of the speed limits through here are 45 to 55 miles per hour. So we need to get people off the highway.
And again, this is more of a formality that they need to apply for the project. You can always reject the project at a later date when it's on the schedule. Go ahead.
I move that we have the resolution of commitment and support for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation 2026-2030 Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP application, to construct the Highway 35 off-road trail phase 4.
To approve, correct?
To approve.
Yes. Okay. Oh, a second? Yeah, Supervisor Counter with the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, ready for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move into the consideration of 2026, agenda item 8, the outdoor recreation plan overview.
So staff's intent of getting this on the agenda tonight was just to kind of update you on the project itself and where we're at. The outdoor recreation plan is one of numerous plans that the county keeps up to date. And in particular, the outdoor recreation plan is important because we have to update this every 5 years in order to be eligible for all the DNR grants that we secure for our park facilities, our bathrooms, our ADA facilities, playgrounds, things like that. So we began updating the plan earlier this year. Basically, we have a draft in the packet for you, but we're not going to touch on it too much tonight. But basically, the plan provides information on our recreational focus, our goals and objectives. We provide up-to-date demographic information. Then more importantly, we identify a 5-year capital improvement plan. So each of our 12 park facilities will have a CIP plan for the next 5 years. And that's what we need to document when we apply for the grants. We have to prove that we went through a public process and identified those projects. We began this project in March, updating the plan. We met with our Parks Division staff to inventory the condition of our park and trail facilities. We discussed the needed park improvements, reviewed existing goals and objectives, and we analyzed some of the trends of what's going on in outdoor recreation from local, state, and national surveys. As with all of our plans, we do a pretty extensive public outreach, which began in June. We launched a project webpage that had a user survey that was active from June until the end of August. We promoted this survey by using direct email to all governmental jurisdictions. So we sent individual emails to all 35 of the cities, villages, and towns throughout the county. We also notified chambers of commerce, outdoor interest groups within the county. We promoted the outdoor rec plan through the county Facebook page, promoting it at county libraries and newspapers. Jason gave updates of the project at the Towns Association group, and we also had project boards at the different parks that notified people, and we had QR codes that people could take the survey by downloading it on their phone. We also conducted an open house in July to solicit public input, and we had 162 people respond to the county park survey. We won't get into detail tonight about the results because we will have to have a public hearing for this plan update. More importantly, we have a scheduled timeframe. Tonight, just kind of giving you an update, September 18th. Next week, we would like to get the project webpage updated with the draft plan. October 1st, provide a link to that webpage to all the governmental jurisdictions and our DNR partners. The webpage will include the draft plan and public hearing notice so people can make comment on that. October 16th, we would post the public hearing notice in the official newspaper, and then November 20th would be the public hearing date. And then if that gets past the committee November 20th, the board could consider action on the plan at their December 2nd meeting, which falls in line nicely because a new round of grants will become available early next year that we hope to apply for. So the timing of when this plan gets updated and complete will fall in nicely with that. I think I'll stop there. I think one thing we wanted to chat with the committee briefly about was the Kinnick Forest, and I think I'll let Jason touch on that real quickly, unless there's questions about the timing and what we're looking at. Okay.
Thank you, John. So the Kinnick County Forest is one 80-acre property that the county has, and that property was planted as a red pine plantation back in the 60s. And so the DNR and our staff to walk through it, and they suggested doing a thinning a couple years ago. And so they actually marked it for a thinning. The red pine are kind of at the end of their life cycle. They're very large, very straight. There's also some invasive creeping vines and that within the trees. And so using our last corp, which basically says that we are to manage the property for, a good forest or a well-managed forest. And that, so we put it out for bid twice, actually. We're working with the DNR forester to do a thinning, basically to cut 1/3 of it at a time, and then to separate the other cuttings over the next 10 to 12 years to take and remove all those trees. Unfortunately, in that we did not receive any bids on the project. The pulp market, which we thought these would actually be probably qualified for poles, that we'd get some interest just because of how large the trees are and how straight they are. But again, we didn't get any bids, so I would just like the committee, and I don't need an answer tonight, to think about this property, to think about any interest that you might have in the property. Do we want to consider, doing a clear cut and a replant out there, for example, to try to get more volume to make it more enticing for a logger to do? Or do we just want to leave it in its current state? And so all we're looking for is guidance, and it's just something to think about.
I guess my opinion is leaving it would be dangerous, but maybe it's somewhere in the middle where you let them tell you what it'd be, where it'd be worth it, and then make a decision there from there. I think a clear cut is also not the greatest either, but I don't know. Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
I would say if we didn't get any bids at a third, and a third, why don't we try half?
Okay.
That would be the next spot, I would say.
Okay. And then just to add, and that the county outdoor plan here and that the projects in there, I would encourage the committee to go through, because that really does guide staff to look for grant opportunities that are available, and that to see when we can make those projects happen. So it's a really good guidance tool for us as staff.
Go ahead, Supervisor Zimmerman, yeah.
I agree too, that we should harvest that.
Yeah, we had our DNR forester, Andy, he sent it out specifically to all of his logging contacts. We posted it in the paper. The only thing that we got is people that wanted to charge us to cut down every tree.
All right, anything else on the outdoor rec plan? Otherwise, we'll move. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I make one more suggestion for this outdoor plan? That in here, we've got a couple sections about ATV, UTV routes, but it would be nice, and I get asked this question often in Baldwin, it'd be nice if there was a map that showed the ATV, UTV routes that were available on town roads, county roads. I guess that's it. I don't think the state wants them, but, a map that shows where they can go.
I'd probably point them to a website instead of having to update the plan all the time.
Well, I was just looking at the map that we've got here on, just something like that, and the website also, but there is nothing out there, and that.
Sure.
Yep. That's what's needed.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe a map of current roads, and to see the most updated one, go here or something, yeah. Or current routes. Anything else on the rec plan?
Just on, one thing on page 186 of the park plan, the chart that you have there, population chart, is off quite a bit. If you have any updated numbers on populations.
I'm sorry, where was that, Commissioner Counter?
Page 186. I'm looking in the packet page 186, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you just. Yeah,
Do we split our agenda that way?
I'm sorry.
If you hit agenda packet right below on the left side there. Yep, I think it'll make the whole thing then.
Ah.
I have to make it difficult.
You can.
I don't have the keyboard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you don't have a keyboard?
Ah. Perfect.
Nope, didn't go.
So it was page 186, Supervisor Coner?
Correct.
because I'm coming up with the loop trail for that page number.
Oh, is my version older than yours or something? I just look, let me go back to it here.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Did you say it was demographic data or population?
Yes. Yes, just a second here, sorry, I'll bring mine to it here.
So we include the 2020 census data, is that what you're looking at? 167.
Yeah, where did I get that?
So the outline we follow from the DNR requires us to use census data. I guess as a supplement, we could try and find the provisional estimates.
The chart I seen, that isn't it either, but it had time, and it isn't coming up correct on mine either, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I had a wrong number here, but what it had was it gave population from starting, I think, 2010, and then it was in like 10-year increments or something, all the way to 2050.
Okay.
What the proposed
166.
166? That's, looks better, yeah. Because the populations in that particular one are considerably off.
One more.
One back.
There you go.
So what's interesting is these are the most recent, as of 2 months ago, these are the most recent forecasts by the Department of Administration. And as you can see, they have the county population significantly leveling off. We're almost to the point where we have reached our 2040 forecast. So internally at a staff level, we're trying to determine if we should come up with some of our own forecasts, because the state, when they do their population projections, they do not consider economic factors. They look at birth and death rates and migration. So given our proximity to the Twin City Metro and looking at the job growth from the recent Twin City forecasts, you know, we've had internal discussions. We think these numbers should be more in the 115 to 120 range, but we are referencing the official numbers of the state. So we can talk about that more at our hearing, but
Sure. Well, I just seen it, and I know
Yep.
we're in excess of 100,000 now, and they
Yes.
have us under 100,000 by quite a bit, so.
Yep.
5 years.
And that's 5 years from now, so.
And under the outdoor rec plan rules, there's nothing stating that we have to abide by the state forecast. We can come up with some of our own numbers, which we've started to do. So if that makes, if that makes sense to you, we can certainly modify those.
It'd just be more relevant to what's actually happening.
More realistic, yes. Yep,
Thank you.
thanks.
Anything else on this plan? All right, we'll move to agenda item 9, the consideration of the 2026 budget request.
All right, thank you, Chair Anderson. I'm filling in for Ken tonight. The budget's kind of his baby, so be gentle, so I can take it back in one piece to him. I'm a little bit of a babysitter here for him. So a bit of background on the budget process as far as the timeline. So we're meeting tonight to kind of go over the community development budget. Tonight's your best chance to give any input for any changes that you see that need to be made. We can bring it back and make changes now. You can still make changes. It's going to go to the committee of the whole in October. It's just a little more difficult because at that point it's a balanced budget and it's kind of fairly locked in. But again, you can still make changes at that point. After committee of the whole, it's going to go to admin for approval in October, and then we'll go to the full county board for adoption in November. So when we start the budget process, we start by having department heads fill out position changes and new requests. Then we put in the wages and fringes at that point to get those expenses in. We copy over the 2025 revenues and operating expenses, and then the department heads can go in and make any changes that they deem fit. After that, we were left with about a $650,000 budget shortfall. So we needed to then go back in and make cuts and trying to get it to a balanced budget. So myself and Ken met with all the department heads. Ken brought in his big box of red pens so he can cross off what he needs to. And then we, at some point, we'll get to that recommended budget. So again, tonight's your best chance. If anything you see, I will take notes, bring it back to Ken to review and go over. A couple things that we noticed as we're going through the budget. First is around labor. We put it in a wage grid about 10 years ago. It has 19 steps in it, step 1 and 19. Employees progress through it as they work longer at the county. So the longer you stay at the county, the higher their steps are. And then in theory, you would rehire someone at step 1. Lately in the past, just to get applicants in the door, we've had to hire at a higher step than step 1, maybe step 5, step 6 it might be, so we're not seeing the cost savings. But lately, we're actually able to start seeing these cost savings. People are leaving at step 15, 16, and we're hiring at step 1. Just kind of change the job market, and then department heads are getting used to hiring at step 1 and following the wage grid. The other trend is we did see a 2.8% increase in our healthcare costs, but in some departments, we're actually seeing a decrease in healthcare costs, and that's due to the changes that we've made to the plan lately. In 25, we saw a higher increase in in employees going to their spouse's coverage rather than stay on the healthcare plan for the county. Since we budget for what an employee is actually at, so in 24, we budgeted for 25. In 25, we're budgeted for 26. So now in 26, we're actually seeing those changes for the people who dropped the plans. So while healthcare costs are going up, some departments are actually seeing a decrease in that. And we'll kind of point through a couple as we get through there. So for position requests submitted for 2026, they're both in the Parks Department. The first one was a park specialist. These are the summer helps, changing it to a parks laborer. This would change the work duties of the seasonal staff member, and it was a minimal increased expense. I don't know about the laborer position. It sounds a little scary. It sounds more like what I did at my dad when I went in the summer, go up in the haymow and stack bales, but if you can get people in as a laborer, go for it. The other was a full-time assistant parks manager. This was an increased cost of about $40,000. It would replace 2 seasonal FTEs. The schools seem to start later, go back earlier. So by the time an employee gets trained in for the summer, we're kind of only seeing a couple months worth of quality work. So replacing a seasonal staff member with a full-time staff member, it would allow Jason's team to do more maintenance in-house and do more projects on their own rather than outsourcing them. Another thing that is happening next year is we're moving to kiosks for fees. So at some point that will reduce the need for seasonal staff. So both of these positions are in the requested budget that you see tonight. It's a little bit of a debate right now as far as assistant parks property manager. We kind of want to see how the kiosk works and see if that need is actually there, but we do foresee the need in the future to maybe reduce the seasonal staff and hire an additional parks manager, assistant parks manager. So as we go through the budget, we're going to focus on a couple areas. So we kind of look at our general property taxes, what is the levy to the residents. We look at our net wage and fringes, which is our payroll expenses. And then we'll look at our operating expenses, which is everything else. And we'll compare 26 to 25 to kind of see where those variances occur. So the Register of Deeds Department, there wasn't a lot of changes, and this is a department that actually doesn't have any tax levy. So all of the fees they collect fully fund their department, and then the tax levy gets distributed back to the other departments. Net wage and fringes went up just $4,000, or sorry, $17,000. And that was just due to your step increase and expected amounts. The operating expense went up only $4,000, and again, a very small amount, kind of attributed to she's fully staffed and she wants to do more staff development training, and it kind of just lead to an increase in mileage, which went up about $1,000 to go to more seminars. And again, stop me anytime you want. We can have Jason's team answer anything further if you need it. In the Parks Department, our property taxes increased by $43,000. We did have a small decrease in the park rents and fees, just kind of the trend that we've been seeing the last couple of years. It was $460 in '23, went down a little over $400 in '24, and we're kind of trending toward that $400, a little over $400 again in '25. Our net wage and fringes, we went up $40,000, and again, that's where those two position changes in the new request is. So it's in this budget as you see it tonight. Our operating expenses, they actually went down $20,000. This was due to the refuse collection services and other contracted services. And this was just kind of getting more competitive bids out there, reducing our costs, as well as reducing other trips out to the parks for septic pumping. The Resource, Land, and Water Department, we had a property tax increase of $18,000. We do have, you see this $160,000 compared to $75,000 last year for other conservations. That was a clerical error, so we just kind of, it got doubled up on accident, so that will be fixed when we get the recommended budget. So that other conservation should actually be $96,000, and then the corresponding expense is down in other supplies and expenses. This $156 should actually be $92.5, so we'll fix that when it comes forward. In this department, our wage and fringe only went up $1,000, and this is kind of where you can see what I was talking about before as far as the health coverage. Last year's budget at 53. Somebody must have dropped coverage, so we're down to 44 this year, so we're actually seeing a savings in health coverage there. In our planning and land records, we actually have 0 property taxes to this department. It's funded by grants and any fees collected. Our net wage and fringes went up less than $1,000, so really no change there. And our operating expenses, they actually went down a lot. They went down $81,000. This was due to the mapping services. I believe it was a 3-year project that was finished last year, finished this year. So there's no need for that next year. And then the other was a decrease of about $20,000 to the software subscription and renewals. They reduced the number of licenses for the staff that was needed to save some money. In the zoning department, we had just a decrease of $1,000 for property taxes. That was kind of offset by the increase in zoning permits and fees and other regulatory permits and fees. We had a wage and fringe increase of $31,000. And again, this is another department where our health insurance costs actually went down $7,000. Our operating expenses, so we had a decrease of $20,000, but after talking with Jason, we were planning to increase the other professional services back to where it was in the prior year.
Dustin, can I jump in there?
Sure.
So the 52190 other professional services account, when we did the budget here, we were looking at, our normal services that we provide. We had to shift gears a little bit for that phase 3 of the Highway 35 trail. That carbon reduction grant does not cover design services. And so the goal is in that by increasing that back to around that 85,000 is that we would work on paying the total design cost for that portion of the trail out of that account. So that's what that money would go for.
Yeah, so ultimately, the same operating expenses for 26 as 25 are expected. The recycling department is fully funded by grants and then a small amount of recycling revenue that's turned in. There's no general property taxes associated with it. As far as wage and fringes, there is just an increase of $2,000 in this department. And then the same with operating expenses. We just saw a small decrease, so really no changes year over year to there. Our hazardous waste department, this is where our clean sweep events are accounted for. Again, no property taxes, we had no change to property taxes from the prior year. And the really very small change to the expenses as well. The library is a mandated levy that we issue every year. It went up $190,000. If we dive deep into it, it was actually really related to the Hudson Library. Their portion of it went up $171,000. It's basically just a fee that's calculated based on the cost per circulation times the number of rural residents in St. Croix County that check out these books, media, whatever it might be. And historically, we have funded 100% for the library, and that's what we plan to do again in 2026. UW Extension, if you remember last year, this $185,000 fund balance applied. That was kind of a one-time idea that was floated and passed to let the UW Extension Department operate as is for one more year. We don't have that in there this year, and we have reduced the general property tax levy to $116,000. That's a reduction of $138,000 from a couple of years ago, from 2024's actual. And so what this is funding now is, excuse me, let me find my notes so make sure I get this right. So it's one full-time 4-H educator, and then a human development and relationship educator, as well as 2 student interns. So that's what's in the cost for this $108,000 professional services. Then the plan is for community development staff to backfill as needed for any additional 4-H help.
I think it's pretty interesting, the UW Extension, we were paying them $285,000 a year and not getting any information as to what they were doing. So I think when we questioned that a few years ago, now we can see that, yeah, now we actually are getting something for our money. So it does pay to question, it does pay to skinny down to see what's going on and make them accountable. So thank you for sure.
Moving on to fairgrounds, there was just a small increase that they requested, a $5,000 increase. So that's just a straight pass through to them. And then economic development, that was the same as prior years. So that's to the St. Croix Economic Development Grant, $115,000. And that's it for the budget. If you have any questions or anything you want me to bring back to Ken?
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
Just had, one of the items that you had was, if I understood you right, we'd be removing some of the summer help for a full-time position on the Parks Department.
So Jason, do you want to jump in and?
Yeah, so I can kind of update that. So over the winter and that last year, we took and evaluated, JR and I did, what would be needed to maintain our park facilities, and then we evaluated our entrance windows at Homestead and Glen Hills. And so we figured out what we pay average seasonal employee and how many hours per week do we actually break even, and that for that employee to be sitting in that window. And it turned out that at Homestead Park, it was about 24 to 26 hours a week that we actually broke even. And over at Glen Hills, it was about 14 hours a week that we actually broke even. In the past, we had been actually double staffing. So we were taking and having like a morning staff person and then an afternoon staff person. Well, everybody wants an 8-hour day, so there was some overlap. And so there was some efficiencies to be created there. And that's why we had a lot more park specialists. As part of this process too, we were hoping to get it up and going for 2025 here, but they're actually working on installing it here in the next week, is we're going to be implementing some gate kiosk, and that those gate kiosk will be able to monitor traffic flow in and out of our parks, and that going forward at our busy spots like Troy Beach and Homestead. And then it'll also increase our season and that, because of these seasonal employees, it really does seem like the schools are keeping the kids longer in the spring, and then they're going back to school earlier. Like we lost all of our seasonals August 22nd out at Glen Hills. And there's a lot of onboarding and training that HR has to do with our staff. And by the time we get them up to speed with the facility and stuff, then we're already, halfway through June or better. And then we get, 8 weeks and then they're gone. And so there's just a lot of other time and resources from county staff that are going into this. And so eventually with adding Eckert Park to and trying to, they can do more of our own stuff in-house, it would be nice to have another assistant park property manager and that just to help with those day-to-day duties. One of the things in that we would definitely need to, plan for, and that is over the winter, what kind of work are we going to be doing to keep our staff busy? So.
Yeah, so that'd be one of those positions that if you feel it's very important, let me know so I can bring that back to Ken. Because as of right now, it's not going to be in the recommended budget. But again, it was roughly a $40,000 increase. And that's kind of what you see in the tax levy, that increased about the same amount.
Go ahead, Supervisor. Supervisor Connor, you can continue, and then we'll Supervisor Shirley. We'll get our opportunities.
So the net would be about a $40,000 increase.
Right, reducing the summer help and then
Yeah.
increasing. So when we put a new position in like that, we budget for a family plan for healthcare, which is about $25,000. So that's going to be one of the big hits. You have a full-time employee, you have benefits, WRS, et cetera.
With that, so the main thing that the takeaway of this is we won't be manning the windows as much because we're looking at an alternate way to have people sign into the parks. And this will not impact as far as having multiple part-time positions for doing mowing or cleaning or garbage pickup and all those types of things. Pulling those positions out, you'll have enough to still be able to maintain the service structure that you currently operate under.
Correct. So we're just kind of changing, and we're very lucky to have the park property managers that we do because they have been willing to do some position responsibility shifts. Before, and that we maybe had a, $30 an hour employee in the entrance building, and you got to sell, 3 passes an hour in order to just break even. And so it was kind of that mentality of spend 100 to make 10, And so we've changed that. 2025 here has been the year of the parks and that with all of our projects going and stuff. And so we've still been able to maintain. We haven't gotten complaints. The only complaints that we had was from our seasonal help, just not stocking toilet paper and stuff like that, just getting them trained in. And there's just a lot of young seasonal help that, maybe needs to learn, how to run a lawnmower and stuff. So it becomes harder and harder to find qualified staff as well. So, but yes, and that we realize that the county board has been very supportive in that with the park facilities that we got and the improvements that we have. And we're trying to reduce the amount of buildings we have to clean and stuff like that with these new improvements. And so maintaining them is still a very high priority or a top priority for our department.
Right, and then you said as Eckert Blufflands gets further developed, that position could help there too.
And with Eckert and that, there's extra responsibilities that are probably going to come with that, with more of the trails and stuff that are out there. As long as we're on parks, just 2 days ago, we found out that we were awarded a DNR Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant for flush toilets at Homestead Park. And so that was a very nice grant. John Hilgers here wrote the grant, did a great job. And so that $104,000 in other professional services, those dollars will be consumed as part of our county match for that grant. It was a $286,000 estimated grant application. And so that's where those funds are. And that's kind of our big transition from doing a whole bunch of little smaller projects in parks. We're trying to leverage those funds with these grants and that to do some of these bigger improvements. And then remove projects off from the capital improvement plan.
Yes, Supervisor Shirley.
No, I was just going to say, and I think you touched on it at the very end, but at the administration committee on Tuesday, we talked about all the recommended positions, the requested positions, and Ken gave us a list of what he was going to recommend to move forward. I think currently that one park position is not on the recommended list, but just wanted to, for the other people that aren't on administration, other than Supervisor Counter here, the recommended or the requested budget line item there is not Ken's recommended one. It's the requested from the department heads still. So when you're looking through that, think about, that includes some of these positions, not only in this department, but other departments when you look at this.
Any comments or thoughts on this, on the 2026 budget request? Nope.
Is there anything you want me to bring back for that position to Ken, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say thank you, Jason, and the rest of the staff. You guys have done a really good job at reorganizing parts of these departments and found cost savings and found ways to keep things off of the KIP, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yes, it's I think that's echoed from the whole committee here, and probably I would guess the whole board too, but I'm not going to speak for them. Yeah, if there's nothing else here, I don't think we need to vote on this at this time, do we?
Nope.
Nope, okay. You're looking for recommendations. I don't know that, we'll see if the positions are like how the pay, I mean, you can always amend the budget next year if it becomes prudent to do so, right? Yeah, with that, I guess we'll leave it. We'll stick with Ken's recommendation for now and then go from there.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Dustin. Financial report for August, I suppose that's you as well.
Yes, it is. So I'm not sure what you guys have focused on in the past meetings. The packets, or the reports in the packets. If you have any specific questions on any departments or line items.
Yeah, how are register of deeds fees trending compared to previous years?
So we are through 8 months of the year. So prior year, we're actually just basically exactly on where we were last August. So it seems like we're tracking right along the exact same path.
And then parks, which I know is it still that kind of lagging thing where it's
Yep.
a little bit like a month off, basically?
Parks is still lagging.
Yeah.
Also, in that we're seeing a lot of our grant expenses coming through right now because we're getting projects done out at Pine Lake and out at Glen Hills. And so we have to pay those in order to take and seek the reimbursement from the DNR. And so the Pine Lake work is completed now, but we should have about $170,000 in that worth of grant funds for the Glen Hills and the other one coming in, and so that'll help offset that. Still, and that this being the year for parks, and that we're doing the kiosk improvements and that to save some of these staffing cost. And so if we do go in the red, we would just use the existing park fund balance to help cover those costs. Right now, I think I kind of prepped the committee at the beginning of the year. Maybe we're going to be in the hole about $100,000 at the end of the year. Right now, it doesn't appear like it's going to be that bad. It should be maybe 10, 20, 30,000 at the worst case scenario. But again, and that when we take and do PowerPoint in November, I think you'll see in that the Parks has really leveraged their money and did a lot in that for that kind of money this year. And the current park fund balance is about 1.3 million. So again, trying to take and get some of those projects done with the money that we already have in the bank, and that instead of asking the county board for more funds.
Any other questions on the budget? No.
On the August financials.
Or August financials, yeah, thank you. Seeing none, I think before we move on to agenda item 11, I think it'd be prudent to take a 5-minute, or so call it 7-minute break back at 5 after 7. We're going to start with agenda item 11, memorandum of understanding between Apple and Willow Farmer-led Watershed Council in St. Croix County. Is that you? I'm assuming that's Jason. Yep.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a memo of understanding and that to establish the partnership between the Apple Willow Farmer-led Watershed Council and St. Croix County, which would be our Land and Water Department. And that the MOU defines the respective roles and responsibilities for each entity and the implementation of BMPs to protect groundwater. So this is a group of producers that have formed their own group. By going through the county here and that we are able to apply for funding for their council to administer. Generally, that's around $10,500 to $11,000 a year. There's no cost to the county for this MOU, but it does allow the county to get a foot in the door to work with some more producers. This is kind of up around the town of Stanton area, the town of Star Prairie, and then those kind of watersheds, so kind of the northern part of the county. Any questions? Kind of short and sweet. So I do also have a signed copy of the MOU by these different farmers and coordinator.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor.
So do you have interaction with these people throughout the year, Jason, or
Yep.
is this just?
Generally, they will have like quarterly meetings, you know, and that where they'll all come together. They also do on that the BMPs in that which will interact because they'll submit those to us for reimbursement of those funds. And so yes, it's a good way to get more BMPs on the ground. So, and in the new state budget, there was actually an increase for producer-led groups like this. So there's probably some extra funding out there that won't be taking extra funds from a different group. Probably.
Being then that, with the county being involved with a signed agreement with them, then would this kind of become like a quasi-official government
partnership?
Mm-hmm. So requiring open meetings law and all of that, posting.
It's not to that level, no. And that, I mean, they are private meetings, and that because none of our staff are elected officials and stuff, but a lot of times they are trying to get more producers to be part of their group. And so a lot of times the public are welcome. So we do have a similar MOU with the Dry Run group, and that does meet about quarterly.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Seems like a worthy thing to support. Anyone want to make a move? Probably need a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding, correct? Supervisor Van Summeren.
Make a motion that we enable the memorandum of understanding between the Apple Willow River Farm-led Watershed Council and the St. Croix County.
And that's to approve, correct?
To approve, yep.
Okay. Supervisor Rice with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Now, the update on the Xcel Energy Joint Development Agreement.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna give my little spiel first. Jason is gonna go through his summary and the updates. Then we will take public comment. I'm gonna be pretty stringent on the 3-minute timer. It is still 3 minutes, but I'm gonna be pretty stringent. And I'm gonna limit public comment to an hour. So we've heard a lot of public comment in multiple meetings. There'll be further opportunities for public comment on the same issue. And that is why we're doing that. So with that,
I object.
That's too bad.
okay.
With that,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make this quick. So, as many people know, but in case somebody wasn't here on August 18th, the full county board, the towns of Hammond and Aaron Prairie were here, Excel Energy and their representatives were here. We basically had a list of 20 potential JDIA items to talk about, including into the joint development agreement. And at that, since that time, Excel Energy and also county staff have been working on incorporating those changes into the joint development agreement. And so with that, the joint development agreement in the packet it has the changes highlighted in yellow. I will, just for transparency purposes, say that I received it on Friday and we didn't get it added to the packet because I was out on PTO. Until Tuesday. So, but working with Excel, there was some conversation about the JDA trying to address phase 2 and phase 1 of the project. And so that was for 650 megawatts total. And there was a lot of unknowns because we don't even know the land area for phase 2 yet. We don't know any of the specifics of it. And so Excel said, why don't we just take and reduce the overall scope and only talk about phase 1? So they suggested changing that to 300 megawatts. So if there was another phase 2, Excel is not saying that they wouldn't do a joint development agreement for that phase 2, but since they will be 2 separate applications through the PSE and that they would be coming back to the county at that point. Also here, this is not a change, but it says county and town roads collectively as the designated roads. This has been in the drafts all the way along. And the draft that the county provided to Excel actually went in and took and changed it. Wherever it said just county roads, we said county and town roads, and also added town chairperson for any of the studies or reports that would be done, that the town chair would have input throughout that process. And the thought process behind the county doing that was we were thinking that the town would probably want to have that protection, and they're probably not going to have time to work on their own joint development agreement and that before Excel files. However, in that, Excel brought up a good point too, that the towns are not signing this document. So by including the towns and the town chairperson, we're basically putting duties and responsibilities on them without them signing the contract. And so Excel Energy, and that removed out the town road standards or provisions of the JDA. However, they are open to doing an addendum or something of that nature and inserting towns back in if either one of our towns are willing to sign the addendum or the JDA. Number 5 is language that our corporation counsel worked with Excel's counsel on, and this is basically the intervention text. And that for the county to intervene in there. So this is the language that they came up with. Okay, provision C, that was previously 30 days. It's been changed to 60 days. That was upon suggestion by our highway commissioner, Robbie Croix. He didn't think that you could get all of this done within 30 days. Especially if there was a traffic analysis that needed to be done or something like that. So 60 days was more appropriate, and Excel was willing to extend that notice. Excel Energy, one of the things that was brought up was the emergency response and hazard plans, and that to address any emergencies within the potential project area or the battery storage. So that was G that was put in there. One of the things Rob also brought up with the highway is that they do not want Excel doing the maintenance on the road, that they want the county to maintain. So you'll see that the county shall maintain the road infrastructure, not Excel. And then also in a case that there was an emergency, to the traveling public and that, and the safety of the public on the roads. We didn't have a provision in there that would address that. So this bigger chunk here, and that talks about if there is a time and that where the county highway department just needs to go out and correct unsafe situation, and that we can do that, and Excel would still be responsible for those costs incurred. And that without trying to call Excel, and that maybe we can't get a hold of somebody, and then what do we do with that road repair? So that's the purpose of that. Yeah.
You back up on that just a second? So what about the town roads? Because the traffic isn't only going to be on county roads. So does this apply to town roads too, that the county is going to maintain them? Or maybe the county does maintain the roads in Erin Prairie
It's,
and Hammond.
yeah, that's,
Yep.
I think that's why it's worded.
So the
designated.
county shall maintain the road infrastructure of the designated roads. Designated roads still includes county and town roads.
Or it does include town. I was
Yep.
just wondering if that shouldn't be spelled out in there, that, if that would make the townships feel better.
I think it was.
It was kind of up here, yeah, so collectively designated roads, county and town roads collectively designated roads. So that's how they had it worded. Okay, and then the last one here, and that is that, Xcel Energy shall compensate the county to repair said roadways to the level comparable to their pre-construction level, and that we would provide estimates before the work would commence, and that their approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. Xcel Energy will notify the county where facilities are located through established communication protocols and procedures regarding emergencies and general project activities. So Xcel has emergency communication protocols and stuff for all their facilities. They will have one for this project too, if it's approved. And so that's basically all they're requesting there. They have offered to provide that protocol to the county's corporation council, and that if you had any specific questions as far as the process or the legality of it. The county board had talked about a 25-year storm event for stormwater and erosion control. And also the 30-day time period, and that with allowing our land and water department to consult with their erosion control plan. Provision C, Rob Kretschy with Highway said that's all fine and that, but really that's not the same drainage standards and stormwater standards that we currently use today. And so that's where, and that the last sentence there was added that both parties agree that any drainage infrastructure repair plan will comply with Wisconsin statute and current drainage standards. Just to update that. And then the last three big bullet points here, karst geology. Xcel said that they would hire a karst geologist to advise on the construction plan for the project. The karst plan will also be incorporated in the decommissioning plan of the facility, because we talked about removing the posts from the karst and sealing them. Construction hours, and that would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then contractors about hiring local companies to do the work and only qualified contractors to do it. So Xcel Energy will hire licensed contractors and employ qualified local labor. Supervisor Van Sumeren.
Under K, it says that they're going to hire the geologist, but it says nothing there about giving us a copy of that report.
Okay.
And I think we want a copy of that report.
Okay.
So I think that should be included in that.
And then under number 11, cooperation, if at any time after the CPNC is issued and they seek a project modification, that they would provide that information and notice the county on it. And so that's kind of where, in that phase 2, that they're still going to be communicating with the county. I know that we had talked about it at the county board and the towns and that during that joint meeting about a notification process. And Excel said really the best way to be notified of the project and any new documents is to actually subscribe to the Public Service Commission docket when it is formed or when they file. And that's the last change. Any other feedback, Supervisor Van Summeren?
One other question. Is it possible in this JDA for them to terminate operations sooner? What happens if they decide after 10 years they don't want to go on with this? Is this, how does that affect this agreement or any agreement that we might
Well,
have?
I think the decommissioning plan with the Public Service Commission would have to address that. I'm not sure what that would be. Similar to like the King plant too, the Public Service Commission, if they take 650 megawatts off the grid, you know, they're gonna have to take and find other sources before they can take and come back and actually decommission that solar array.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about decommissioning. That's covered in other places. But I was just thinking, do they have the right, the opportunity to say, after 10 years, that's it, or 5 years, that's enough? And does that affect this particular document in any way?
Yeah, I'm not, the term of the agreement, effective date. Yeah, so the duration of the project is what it said. So as long as the project's operating, then the joint development agreement would be in effect. And if the project's not operating, then there'll be, you know, having to remove it based on the PSC decommissioning plan. I don't know if I'm giving you enough information.
I was thinking more about
there.
road repairs and those kinds of things. You know, not the decommissioning of.
That is covered in the road section. Decommissioning would follow the same standards as far as a pre-road inspection and then following up with any maintenance cost and that if there was damage done. That is covered in here.
But that's still not what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Can they say after 3 years, this doesn't pay for us, we're just gonna tear it up? Does that affect this document at all? Because we're gonna sign this for the duration. We know the duration to be 20 years, possibly plus 10 more, 30 years.
Okay.
So if it's 3 years, then what? Is there a way for them to get out of it? Is there a way for us to get out of it?
Yeah, I believe as long as the project is no longer operational, and so if 3 years, they go in and they tear out the facility, something like the community grant area, you know, and that they're not gonna be committed to that for 20 years or 25 years. Because that project won't be operating any longer, so.
But we're signing this agreement now, which says it's gonna be 20 or 30 years.
Liquidated damages clause.
Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
So I think I can kind of answer that. So yes, that term section that you went over was well operational. Now, the problem with that clause that they have in there is that operational means, well, they're producing power. So as soon as they're not producing power, the rest of this JDA is gone. So that means our decommissioning clauses in there doesn't matter. Our road fixes after don't matter because they're no longer producing power. So that's the problem with this, with the term section, which I think answers your question. Also, I don't have a definite answer, but I've been told that there's an early out clause on the land agreements. So, so to go on to that, if we go back up to number 5, one of the earliest items, where the JDA is not construed as an endorsement, but we can't talk about anything in the Public Service Commission that's talked about in the JDA. So what this is doing is if we sign this, we're saying that we can't talk about anything that's in the JDA. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to get sued. And the problem, not only, if that's not enough of a problem, those of us that don't agree with the JDA, if this is passed through without us, we can't go down to the Public Service Commission and say otherwise, because what will happen, and this has happened before in Public Service Commission, is that I believe it was a town, had a council member that submitted a paperwork on town letterhead, and it was construed as a town statement. So in my case, if I were to go down and say something to the Public Service Commission, and there was an item in here, not only will the county get sued, but it'll follow down to me. So, so that's a big red flag. The other thing is, in this section where number 5 is the recital section. The recital section is a nice trick by Excel's attorney to put it in the recital section, because that's not really the agreement. As you scroll down, your agreement says after number 6, now therefore in consideration, recitals aren't technically a legal document in the agreement. They are a place for terms and definitions, but they're not for what's actually in the agreement. So it was a nice little sleight of hand there by Excel, but I think there's a couple of us that have noticed that.
Can you describe a little better what you mean by that? Like what would not be
so
relevant?
What they have in number 5 there is not construed as an endorsement. We can't talk about it. That section should actually be down in the actual agreement. So it's not a definition. This is what should be where it is. It should be down below, which I've seen, and some other attorneys have also told me that they've seen those sections of these JDAs thrown out and not part of the actual agreement if they were actually ruled on in court.
Yeah, it's a huge red flag. It's like, how can you trust somebody who's trying to sneak that by you?
Trust is a big issue.
Yeah. I've also heard from a landowner in the area that they have been sending out good neighbor agreements for people who aren't leasing land, but you basically sign away like a lot of, I'm not going to say all because I don't know that for sure, but it seems like you sign away a lot of your otherwise available rights or opportunities to contest based on the description I was given, right? So it's that's a red flag also. I think we'll go to public comment and then we'll see what else we have to say after that. Again, 3 minutes, maximum of an hour. I will be more stringent than we've been in the past. I might give you a couple seconds extra and an added phrase, but it's not going to be another paragraph. With that, we'll start with Becky Brathel, and after Becky is David Meyer.
Hi, my name is Becky Brathel. I live in Emerald Township. I operate a small operation in partnership with my family. Thank you for letting me speak. Today I'm here to talk to you as the treasurer for the St. Croix County Farmers Union. So members, please raise your hands. Our St. Croix County, our chapter encompasses beef, dairy, vegetable, row crop, multi-generational, and new farmers in our county. Our local chapter has been active for decades within the county, hosting educational events on farming, food systems, raising funds for youth education, and advocating for better farming and markets and responsible stewardship. Our St. Croix chapter is also part of Wisconsin Farmers Union. So Wisconsin Farmers Union and our chapter are committed to enhancing the quality of life for family farmers, rural communities, and all people through educational opportunities, cooperative endeavors, and civic engagement. We are a big tent organization. So we as a chapter also believe in the position of our state, that position of developments such as the JDA So quote from our policy book that we support strong community benefit agreements as a condition of any commercial renewable energy installations. These community benefit agreements must be developed in a transparent process and ensure that a fair share of revenue from the installations is shared with all those impacted. This policy has been in place for years. This is not a reactionary response to current conditions. Our chapter see the need to be at the table. We strongly encourage that St. Croix County continue to pursue a JDA with Xcel Energy in order to protect our county assets and try to maximize potential benefits of any large-scale commercial project in the county. In our view, such an agreement is a way to ensure the cooperation invests in the well-being of the project's neighbors. It establishes basic structures and communication lines to ensure that potential problems are efficiently prevented or otherwise quickly resolved. While there are many things we would like to see included in the JDA, which currently are not, so please work towards more things, such as protecting our natural resources, to compensate neighbors for changes, and to ensure investment in our community institutions. All of that predicates a JDA existing. Without that, we remain dependent on the minimum requirements set forth by the state legislature. And when our county staff inevitably deal with issues on site, lines of communications will not be there. Please continue to negotiate hard for the best JDA possible to achieve this. And coming from a friend farmer of mine, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, David Meyer, and after David is Dave Franey.
My name is David Meyer. I live in Erin Prairie. By now, you should know we don't want a JDA with Xcel. We've discussed the many karst, groundwater danger, wetland and wildlife impacts, battery storage risks, stray voltage, and other concerns. We do not want this or any other solar project. Erin Prairie has a comprehensive plan that clearly documents our interest in remaining agriculturally based rural community. If any industrial scale project, be that solar, wind, data centers, or whatever comes next gets implemented, it will forever change this area into something that no one will want to live near. Imagine living in a town, let's say Hudson, where you move to for all the great amenities that you love, parks, small business shops, a beautiful riverfront for people to come enjoy, etc. And suddenly a development project comes along and redefines the entire area, eliminating the very things that attracted you to that area. Well, now you know how we feel. Solar and wind are the least efficient sources for generating electricity. I see no reason to back a technology that is already way behind today's nuclear power. And given the improvements expected from nuclear in a few years, it would be foolish to destroy all this excellent farmland now. Don't sign yet another final draft version of a JDA that adds virtually nothing. Instead, continue your intervening plans.
Thank you. All right, Dave Franey, and after Dave, we have Bonnie Smith.
Hi, my name's Dave Franey, and I live in Erin Prairie. I want to thank everybody for giving me their time tonight. First, I'd just like to remind you guys on who you're working with. Xcel was here, I was here a month ago, and they said, we have the cheapest electricity rates in the area. We're cheaper than anybody else. They said it at least twice. I was sitting right there. I went and checked on this afterwards. I even talked to Rob, the CEO at St. Croix Electric, and they're not the cheapest, by the way. St. Croix Electric is cheaper, and he even thought the other electric companies in there are cheaper as well. So they lied right to your face. Just like you said, a red flag here, red flag there. They lied right to your face. They came here, I was sat right there again, and they said, we've been in the towns that are affected by this. We've talked to the people, and we're right in tune with them. Well, I got news for you. I've been in Erin Prairie for 25 years, and I've never heard a word from any of these clowns. They haven't come to any meetings. We've asked them to come. We meet every Wednesday. Everybody knows it. They find it a reason not to come. So now they've lied to you twice. So it says in this thing here, under number 11, cooperation, it uses words like work together in good faith. Under recitals, what you all just talked about, It says, foster cooperation and good faith dealings. That's between the power company and our county. Do you guys think they're doing that right now? They're not doing that. They don't care about you. They just lied to your face and came back and came up with some changes to a JDA. And what do they come back with? They come back, I'll consolidate this here. And you just all talked about it a minute ago. They come in their stormwater management plan, and they come in with their water conservation plan, right? They're going to give the county 30 days, and I heard 60, but I think on this is still 30 days to look it over. I guarantee you guys, you ain't going to get done in 30 days. They're going to start construction in 30 days after they give you this. And if it takes you 60 days, they're going to come back to you and say, well, sorry, guys, you're too late. We already started construction. This stuff that they're talking about should be to you guys 6 months ahead. So they're lying to you. This is not going to be a good relationship. Here's what I suggest you all do in closing here. I suggest you're hiring, say it's $500,000. You're going to spend more defending, trying to get them to live up to this than $500,000. They're going to get you to sign anything and then make you fight for it. Trust me, that's the way these guys operate. They've proved it. If I were you guys, is what I'd do is I'd tell them that hire the lawyer, tell the law firm that you're working with that you would like. I think you're in over your heads. I think you should ask that law firm you're hiring, what would they do? Would you go out and sign a JDA on the side? Get some legal advice on this, guys, because I think you're making a big mistake trying to handle it yourself. You're not dealing with a bunch of kids here. These guys are smart. Don't try to make, and nothing else, cover your ass, because then you can tell the people is, I didn't make this decision. We got legal advice. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, Bonnie, and after Bonnie is Carrie Willoughby.
Bonnie Smith, Baldwin Township. So why do you want Excel to come and rape our best farmland in Wisconsin? We haven't heard. If there wasn't money mentioned, would there be a good reason? We've yet to hear any. How can Excel make any promises? They have not done a karst project like this before. That info came from a hydrologist. Understand, we are an experiment to them. Excel blatantly lies, yet you believe them, and are willing to sign a JDA that isn't worth the paper it's written on. Why? Why wouldn't you do everything in your power to stop this from happening? Did they put some glittery amount of money on paper and you're charmed? What is pretty on paper is not always right, true, or even a good idea. Doing the right thing is right. You may think $75 million for a jail looks so super glossy on paper. Will each inmate have their own microwave or tablet? Maybe there's a pool, just like a night at the motel. Here's a great idea. How about your jail show $74 million on paper, still super excessive and glittery, and then get the best legal representation? We could help you get that info from those that went through the forest lawsuit. An attorney that knows this kind of law to take this to the PSC to stop this experiment before it goes bad. I have found nothing in my research that says it will turn out well. Have you? Please show us. A couple months ago, there was some information sent to each of you because we were not allowed to show anything on the screens here. In there was a map that came from your St. Croix County website of a portion of land showing only the known sinkholes. When the map was laid over with the same land that Excel wants to pound hundreds of thousands of poles into, this will completely destroy the land if you look at that map. That in itself is a major eye-opener. Look again. Remember, Excel lies. You will not see the glitz that you think you may see. The lawsuits will not look pretty on paper. Please do not ignore the cries of the people that you represent while doing your own best idea or opinions. Help us stop this from happening, not just with words, but with real action. Remember, caring takes action. What is the truth of what will happen if you don't do your best to stop this? Can you show us the good that this solar complex will bring here to us? You say this has never been won before, but that's not true. Forest doesn't have a wind turbines because they went all out and stopped it. That wouldn't have happened if they had not pushed it. There's a first time for everything. Do the right thing for the people, including your own families. Help us save our land from being robbed, killed, and destroyed. Remember, Excel doesn't know or care. Prove me wrong. So what are you agreeing to? Is the next phase in your yard? Just say no to a JDA. Just say, no, we don't want this. Scrape a little cream off the jail fund and let's really fight this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Carrie, after Carrie is Sherry Croft.
Hi, I'm Carrie Willoughby from Baldwin. I have to respectfully disagree with the gal who first spoke, only because so many of us have been working with Excel for a very long time. We've been told a lot of nonsense. We haven't been given facts. If I had anything that I would like to say is, please do not do the JDA. In looking at the current JDA, some of the things that they came to you with on it don't make a lot of sense. Actually, one being the geologist. If you're going to be looking at karst issues, I would be going with a geotechnical engineer and doing way further studies than just a geologist can do. In speaking with an engineer who has worked with karst and who had given me the names of a few geotechnical engineers, when I called, it's very difficult to find a firm that's not affiliated with Excel, which is a big conflict of interest. You should be choosing who that person is, and they should not be having the choice of that. And interestingly, they will be very upfront with you about whether they have, I mean, the one geotechnical engineer I spoke with said, I don't work with solar, but because we have a lot of accounts with them, we wouldn't touch this. So, you know, really look at what they're offering, because I don't think it's good. We should have way more in that agreement about the decommissioning. That's missing as well. And that's all I have to say. Just don't do the JDA. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Cherie, and then after her is David Kramer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sherry Croft. I live in Hudson Township. Here we are again. I say ditto to everything that other people have said. However, I want to add a little bit of personal touch. I've heard people say that this would devastate their lives. People who have had multiple generations before them who have developed the community as we know it. They say they're going to pick up and move. Maybe that chart of population may not need to be changed, the one we just saw. So people with deep roots moving from this area, dwindling population, empty schools, stores closing, abandonment of property, medical clinics and hospitals will be affected, loss of jobs. St. Croix County go backwards. With all due respect, please fight against this to the end.
Thank you. All right, David Kramer. After David is Janet Sapurik.
Hey, thanks for letting people speak. So I'm a landowner in Richmond Township, Somerset Township. I am surrounded, I have ag land in both townships. I am surrounded by subdivisions. We have a rail facility in our Richmond Township that our whole board was against. And my point to them, if you all are against it, who's going to work with the railroad when this facility is going to go in? Because these rules that they were questioning were put into effect, laws were put into effect back when Abraham Lincoln was president. When we had no one who was going to work with the railroad facility, no one. The guy named Mark Rose at CN Railroad told me the more they fight this, the less we're going to do for sight lines, the less we're going to do for landscaping. And that's exactly what we got. So what I'm concerned about is if we have nobody willing to work with with this on this project, when we look at what ag prices are right now, all you people who are against this, y'all realize that farmers are not making any money? That there is no market for soybeans right now. I would like to see all these people who are against this form some kind of coalition, cooperative. You want to spend county money? Let's see you spend your own money. Take Excel out of this project. Let's see you spend your own money, lease the land from the farmers.
Face forward. You're not talking to us.
Okay, I think I'm talking to you, pal, because none of you are, what I see is that a lot of people are against this because of views. We don't want to look at this. And a lot of them are against views in their subdivisions that used to be farmland. I was lucky enough to travel down Highway 29 to go to a Packers game a week ago. You can't believe how many solar arrays are all along the highway. Was just up in Minnesota for my work in the rail industry today, along Highway 8. Huge solar arrays. Farmers who still own their land. Minnesota has rules that make Wisconsin look like it's wide open. You don't think that they looked at all the rules for groundwater, all this stuff? And here's what I'm going to say. The PSC comes back and says, we're going to deny this because of citizen opposition. All these farmers have a contract with Excel. You want to talk about hiring a lawyer? You better look at a taking when there are contracts signed. And this is a business that's listed in the St. Croix comprehensive plan, in the county comprehensive plan, as being a legal business, solar. So if you're going to take this and be against it, I'm going to say we need somebody who's willing to work somehow, because the railroad, because Excel, just like the railroad, doesn't have to pay attention to any of this. They have stakeholders, shareholders who invest in the company because part of their power proposition is renewable energy.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Janet, after Janet, Scott Miller.
I'm Janet Saperk. I live in Baldwin now. As you know, I first came to these meetings after reading in the newspaper. Ken Witt was quoted as saying, "You're not going to be successful. There's no track record of any success taking that path," referring to opposing at the PSC. Of course, I felt differently because we in Forest Township were successful at stopping a wind farm. After reviewing the handout from the last board meeting, I see that all solar farms got their CPCNs. I stand corrected. But later I realized, wait a minute, the wind farm got a CPCN and did not get built because of conditions imposed by the PSC. So now I wonder how many on that list actually were defeated in reality, and that list could be deceiving. I did not have time to review all those 24 items. Although at the beginning it seemed pretty unachievable, the odds were small, like David and Goliath, but we know how that turned out. It just takes one hit in their weak spot, which it just seems to me is karst. I think that could be the project sinking. Literally, you want a firm foundation, not one that's going to crumble randomly, whenever and wherever. It seems like karst could be our one ace in the hole. I have lived in this county. I had lived for about 35 years before I ever even heard the word karst. So it's likely the people in downtown Minneapolis or wherever Excel offices are had no clue until us local people raised the issue. The very idea of building heavy weight on areas prone to sinkholes, it's asking for trouble. I know the county has a sinkhole program because I got a notice of a potential sinkhole on my farm from the drones or software or whatever. It turned out not to be, but it seems county resources could be valuable in unearthing evidence Excel might have missed. This would certainly be an area to bring in our own experts at the PSC to refute whatever Excel pays their expert to say. As we learned in Forest, one person's rights end where another's begin. While one neighbor has the right to secretly sign their land up to be leased, the other neighbor has the right not to be infringed upon. The developer showed up uninvited, unwanted, tried to pull a fast one, hoping to slide it in without people finding out. It's sneaky and just wrong. My husband said there's only one way to deal with a bully, and that's by standing up to them. Our town chair said, I never want to play the coward's role, and we want to know we did everything we could. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Janet. Scott Miller, after Scott, sorry, this one's upside down. Laura Kennard.
All right, Scott Miller, Baldwin, Wisconsin. First off, I'm going to address what obviously Mr. Chairman doesn't understand in regards to the people's power.
You cannot talk about board members individually. It's been reviewed by Corp Council, reviewed state statute. Please do not challenge that.
Corp Council, really? You obviously didn't read the notices. So, free speech. Every person may speak freely. No law shall be passed to restrain or abridge the liberty of the speech. That's Article 1, Section 3. Article 1, Section 4, right to assemble and petition. The right of the people to peaceably assemble, to consult for the common good, and to petition the government and any department therefore shall never abridge. So I would suggest that you go back and read those. Even though it was read in front of you, you might want to read those and understand that. Now we'll move on to the business at hand. Okay, JDA, Joint Development Agreement. So I know you guys talk about being in these meetings and long comments, public comments. My last advice prior to the last time we talked about this agreement was that we shouldn't be signing a joint development agreement. Development agreement doesn't say anything about the mass of the people, which you guys already know because you've commented on how many people you've heard from. The mass of the people don't want this. Okay, well, a joint development agreement insinuates that you're working with them to get it done. The PSC board is going to look at that title and they're going to laugh at you that you signed up as intervener, but you're in a joint development agreement. Mr. Shirley, sorry, not to address him, but pointed out specifically one point that I was going to point out was number 5, which basically is a statement that I learned from here that XL put it in there like, oh yeah, well yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't go against it. I mean, the whole document is an agreement to develop something jointly, okay? The agreement, it is, the stance from the county is, the reason we just put $500,000 in a fund was to fight against it, I believe. But maybe not. Maybe we got some factions working here that wants to sign a joint development agreement, which really says that we're developing it with them. Or, you know, we're going to put a lawyer there and maybe the lawyers are going to actually fight with XL. I don't know. We don't know the details of that. So, but on its face, the joint development agreement is what it says, joint development. It doesn't say joint not development. Joint development means you're going to work with them to get it done. And the PSC, I will tell you, down in Whitewater, they got a solar thing going on right now. And they've done there's been people that have put hours and hours of paperwork in it, okay? They submitted 20 different things from people, beings, not corporations, not random groups, people, you and I. They submitted 20 of them, okay? 5 of them got wiped off the record, nowhere to be found when the PSC was done with their stuff. It's a corrupt organization that doesn't have the power that you guys are leading on, okay? They're put there by the legislature that doesn't have the power to violate our elected officials. It's a commission of 3 appointed people.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, so
we're well over a minute over.
I got you.
Thank
so at the end of the day, what we're asking is this joint development agreement should go bye-bye. And we're going to either pull our pants up and fight this, okay? You can't be a part of the development agreement and act like you're fighting it. I mean, it's a bait and switch if you're asking me. So at the end of the day, we need to figure it out. Are we on the development side of this? Are we working with them? Or are we against it? That's what we got to figure out. Because to me, what it seems like is we're interested in an agreement with them.
All right.
And then we're going to have our lawyers work for them. So.
Thank you.
And the PSC doesn't have the authority that you guys think.
Thank you. That's it.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate your time. It's been a great night.
Laura, after Laura is Billy Joe Watson.
Hi, my name is Laura Connard. I live in Erin Prairie Township. I'm here once again to ask you to vote no to the JDA. I don't necessarily want any JDA signed on behalf of the county and its residents for this project, but I specifically don't want you to sign this document. It's a bad document. It doesn't protect the rights. It doesn't include many of the provisions that are critical. I'm a new recent member of the Farmers Union. What Becky said is important. Again, I don't want the joint development agreement because I agree with Scott, the man that spoke before me, that doing a joint development agreement and intervening are contradictory. Excel's telling you can do it, but I think the message it sends to the PSC is very contradictory. And I was here on Monday night and listened to some of the other county supervisors speak and saying it's a lost cause and it's a waste of county money. It doesn't need to be a waste of county money. If you don't sign a joint development agreement, you can have a powerful position as an intervener. You can have a powerful position with moratoriums. You can have a powerful position with ordinances. If you don't want solar here, there are things you can do to make sure that it doesn't happen. But please, continue to work hard for the people. Listen to us. I know you're probably sick of hearing us and seeing us. This is the fourth night in a row that I've done this, and I am sick. I'm physically getting sick of it. I'm emotionally getting sick of it. There's not just going to be a public nuisance and a health problem that happens when if Excel starts pounding the posts in across from my home. The hardship is already happening now. It's not just happening to me, it's happening to other people that are in this cause, and I think it's probably happening to you supervisors as you're going through this. And I only have one issue that I am working on. I can't imagine how you handle all of this with these many controversial issues, but please help us protect ourselves, protect our health, protect our land, protect the farmland, protect property rights. This joint development agreement doesn't do it. I don't know if you can effectively negotiate one that would. I don't think it's a good use of your time, but please do not vote to pass this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right, Billy Joe Watson, and that's the last card I have. But we will have time after that for people who have not spoken yet. Just be ready if you want to talk after Billy Joe.
Hello. Thank you for hearing me. I'm new. My name is Billy Joe Watson, and I am a proud local community member. I was a local Hudsonite for 14 years, and now a proud member of Polk County, just right over the border. My husband and I relocated to the River Valley in the early 2000s. We drove actually through Hudson one evening, and we watched children playing and sledding on the hills, and we watched local family members with hot cocoa. And I remember I looked at him and I said, it looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. And we moved 30 days later, and we've never looked back. We are now a local business known as Mellowstone. Our goal is sustainable, organic farming, and we work in balance with nature. We seek to produce products that offer natural herbs and plants for the purpose of traditional medicine and teas. Our farms seek to live in harmony with animals and wildlife alike. It is my understanding the proposed solar plan will cross 3 major waterways through public parks. Last I checked, Excel doesn't own that. We do. And I am the public. And I speak on behalf of those that cannot speak. And I ask you to hear me clear and loud. Today will not be the last day you see of me, but rather it is the beginning of a new formed friendship. I speak on behalf of those that cannot speak, your animals and your wildlife. What they propose to do will run EMF and stray voltage through the ground, through the water. It will destroy plants, animals, water, and birds and fowl alike. 38,000 to 140,000 birds and waterfowl die every year by solar. Pay attention to the numbers and read deeply. What they are not telling you is what you need to be seeking. As a Hudsonite, I am proud of this community, and still to this day, I will die a Hudsonite and on this hill. To support each and every one of you, you need an attorney, you need an environmental attorney, and you need to act quick. Excel is not on your side. The things that you see, they're not a joke. These numbers are here, and they are coming to rape your land, poison your children, my grandchildren, and the wonderful people behind me that are generational farmers. I'm a 5th generational proud farmer. You are all in charge of the future of our land and our people and our public. I ask you, I implore with you, to start digging deeper. That piece of paper on a JDA, you haven't seen anything. I work for 5 of the world's largest corporations. I wouldn't have accepted the first 5 lines. Start doing your homework, people. You need it.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken on this issue yet, want to now, yep, please come forward. We do have time for 5 to 8 more.
Hi, Celeste Cobrell, Town of Hudson. I wanted to respond. I'm sorry I spoke earlier out of turn, but to the question that was asked about what do you do? Can XL Energy just drop out of the project? Here's the deal. Let me give you my background. A lot of you know it. 44 years ago, graduated as an attorney, been in good standing in Minnesota ever since. 41 years ago, I started doing alternative dispute resolution as a facilitative mediator. I have spent a lot of time with a lot of people who are very angry and don't want to be there and don't want to talk about what they need to talk about. But I'll tell you, the only way that you can get what you want, even when you don't want what you're likely to get, is by negotiating over it. Your joint development agreement is an opportunity to try and make something that some people don't want at all a little bit more acceptable. And if you negotiate well, and if you negotiate hard, taking into account what you hear from people about what needs to be changed, what needs to be addressed in the document, you may be able to negotiate a document that will be not perfect, but perhaps good enough. And before you walk away, you need to take a realistic look at your alternatives, your best, your worst, and your most likely alternatives to the negotiated agreement. You're not in a very good position, and the people who don't want this project aren't in a very good position because we have to be realistic. State law gives a whole lot of power to this project. We have a state law that says any new electric generation built in this state, if at all feasible, must rely on renewable energy sources. We have a state law that says any project over 100 megawatts is reviewed and the decisions are made by the Public Service Commission. We have state laws that have taken away a great deal of local control over exactly this kind of project. I'm not saying it should be that way. I'm saying it just is. And we have to live in the world of reality. And we have to also deal with a world of facts. So please listen to people. This is an excellent opportunity through public comments for items to surface that should be addressed in the JDA. And one of those was, can you put in a contract that requires or a term that requires XL Energy to do the project for a certain number of time? Absolutely. It's a negotiation. You can propose anything you want. You should identify your concerns. If you think that a term is in an introductory clause and it should be in the body of an agreement, well then ask to move it or propose to move it. That's how negotiations work. Should you trust Excel? You don't have to trust your negotiating partner. You just have to get the facts. You have to be able to negotiate on your own for your own best interests. And you can put in verification terms. So please, frustrating as this is, you are far from a perfect agreement, just like Laura said. It needs a lot more work, but keep working on it. And that will serve your county and everybody in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public who has not spoken on this issue yet want to come forward? Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Hi, I'm Jody Lenz, Stanton Township. I am not I would never have said, yes, bring a solar field here. I grew up in northeast Wisconsin next to 2 nuclear plants. One was built, the second one was built right before I was born, but I still know the trauma that the community went through about that. I don't know if they called it JDAs, but I did see the benefits of those agreements that were made well, and by all means, fight it if that's what you need to do, but every good fight has many layers to it, and this JDA is another layer to that fight. So Excel knows that it's not just about winning in the courts or whatever, that they get to put this here, but that when they do put it here, they're going to have to go through a lot of hoops to make sure that the community can get what they need out of Excel. So this large-scale solar event that's happening Tuesday, September 23rd, there's flyers. Please come, bring your concerns, everybody, learn. There's going to be examples of good JDAs, communities that are seeing benefits from those JDAs. And I get it. I get that saying yes to the JDA seems like you're saying yes to the solar farm. Yeah, but it's also, we have to be realistic, and that if we can't fight it, if the time comes that they win, what else do we have to protect us? And that's what this JDA is about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, please step forward.
Gerald Croix, St. Croix County, Town of Stanton, St. Croix Farmers Union President. I'm not a man of good speech, but I want to tell you a few things that really concerns me. We have a small family farm. This solar thing is going to take away the small family farm. But here's what's going to happen. These farms that are going to get taken over by solar, I don't know the facts for sure, but I've been told $1,200 an acre per year. What's going to happen? They're going to wreck my land price, and they're going to wreck my rent price. It's going to get, I cannot afford to compete with this. They got too much money. Money talks, bullshit walks. I'm sorry to talk that way, but just consider this. I mean, they keep telling you all the good points. They've kind of come into this behind the water. They did their homework before they even let it out in the public. I don't like situations like that. Another thing I don't like is they want to put up the solar panels. Our president today wants everything American made. Where are these panels going to come from? Not American made. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone other member of the public that wants to come and speak? We have time for a few more. Any other public comment on this issue from someone who hasn't addressed it yet? We are not accepting comment from people who have spoken already. Thank you. Any other public comment from someone who has not spoken yet on this issue? Seeing none, we will close the public comment on this issue. Any further thoughts from the committee? Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
A couple more items that I didn't talk about earlier that I wrote down during public comment. This joint development agreement that they gave us again, still nothing in there that the Public Service Commission won't already give us. There's nothing in there. We talked earlier about Chapter 11, acres under NMP will, all of this land is under farmland preservation. I don't know if all of it's on NMP, but I would guess a good chunk of it is. So we will see those acres in our county decrease if this project goes through. Another thing, I think somebody in the public made this comment, but on Tuesday night at the administration committee, I put forward to put in the 2026 budget $500,000 towards the legal fight of intervention. I think that's a good start. I think that we need to have something in the next budget that that helps us. We've already decided that we're going to intervene. We need some money there to start with. And we have to have it in the budget. If we go into this without money in the budget, now we're gonna circle back around. You know, all of us are up for re-election in April. If some of us are not here anymore, then now if it's not in the budget, we need a 2/3 vote to increase funds for that intervention. So I'd rather have it in the budget now than to try to fight for it later at a 2/3 vote. And then I wanted to bring up one other thing that I keep getting asked online over and over again, is that people are asking us to do a no resolution. I can expand on this if people want to reach out to me and ask me why we can't do this, but we can't do this. I do urge our municipalities to do a no resolution, but it has to be a no resolution specific to this project. But us at the county level, we cannot do a no resolution. There's a lot of reasons why behind that, and I can talk to you afterwards if you want to talk about that. But that was another point that I wanted to make before we got too far into this.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, observations, anything? Yes, Supervisor Rice.
We've heard from some people, several people, not to do a JDA, and we've heard some people about the benefits of it. None of us can predict the future and what the PSCW is going to do. We have some data. The data suggests that putting a lot of money behind fighting this, I would estimate the odds are very low that we would alter a decision. And there's no data that I've seen so far, if someone wants to share it, to suggest otherwise. So let's project out, whether it's 12 or 18 months, PSCW makes a decision. And maybe that decision is to allow this to go forward. If we do not have a JDA, and let's just pick out any one of these points, maybe it's something as simple as the setbacks. And it turns out that the installer doesn't do the setback that was in this JDA. I hear people saying things like, there's nothing in here that they're not going to put in this PSCW app. So, but let's say, you know, Robbie is driving around and says, oh, wow, that's not 100 foot, that is 50 feet. The fence installer put it in wrong. So how does our county staff, Robbie or someone else, go about rectifying that? And what he would probably have to do is do a report. It would have to go back to the state. Someone in Madison would have to care. There wouldn't be any quick remedy to resolve that. And that's just a simple example. So what the JDA does is it in the event that PSCW approves this, it gives us a quick contract that is enforceable, that can be done locally without having to go to Madison and perhaps spend more money on court fees. So if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, Ryan's raising his eyebrows. I mean, it's part of this is scenario playing out, something over which everyone here I think agrees, we have no jurisdiction. The laws are written to not give us the power to decide where to site energy. And the law clearly in most states gives it to a utility commission for two reasons. They are authorized to try and keep rates low, and the truth is nobody wants something in their backyard, whether it's nuclear or solar or wind or maybe hydro, what little hydro is left. Nobody wants it in their backyard. So it becomes this balancing act of the public good. So I want to make sure in the long term, we're making the right decision for everybody and looking at all the scenarios, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment on the idea that we won't be successful at the Public Service Commission. And yes, there's been a lot of projects that have gone through public service. It hasn't been very successful in not having them. But I will tell you, and I'm not going to say publicly, I will tell you that we have two legal arguments that through all of the PSC documents that I've gone through, we have two legal arguments that have never been used.
I mean, I'll say my 2 cents. I feel like the best argument against this is Karsten. If it's in a JDA that we sign, then you lose that argument. Obviously, if we go forward with the JDA, you would want bullet point 5 to be in the agreement section. And I also agree that signing a JDA and being an opposer or an intervener, I guess is the proper term, looks kind of ridiculous. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. And I think it's a good idea to put in the budget for next year. Everyone is on the same page and aware of, or not aware, but up to speed. Everyone on the board is up to speed on what's going on. And, yeah, go ahead.
So I watched the admin committee meeting. Perhaps someone can enlighten me as to exactly where this money would come from, because the only source that I'm aware of is taxpayers. Either tax dollars we haven't already spent. I mean, all of us would be paying for this. So let's just be clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe not, I mean, other than Scott and I on administration, a lot of the rest of you probably did not notice. But in the administration committee 2 months ago, we approved the money moved from undesignated fund balance to pay $500,000 down on the debt service and the rest to go to the KIP plan. So in admin, we approved $4.5 million to move. In the main board, we moved $4 million. So that $500,000 was actually set aside by Ken, thinking that we were going to use it for this. So yes, it is taxpayer money, but yes, we always, every year, no matter what we do, we always have extra money. It's between $3 and $5 million every year. That's either extra tax money, extra sales tax money, positions that weren't filled, whatever it is, it's an overtax is what it is. So we've done this year after year after year after year. And now we have this set aside from the 2024 budget after the assessment was done, that we had this extra money in undesignated fund balance that we moved over. So we have that set aside for the $500,000 for now. Do I think that we could spend more than that? Absolutely. But I do know that every single year we have extra money. And I would much rather spend a little extra money on that than to continue to talk about a jail expansion that barely made it through the committee of the whole by one vote to stay on next year's plan, which means that we don't even have the votes to borrow money on that project because it only did by one vote. So, there's money available, and I think that our citizens would rather see us fight for them than to roll over and sign a JDA and not put a lot of money and a lot of effort into intervention and just kind of walk away from this thing. I think that we owe it to the citizens to do it and do it right.
Any other thoughts on a JDA? There's no action here, and we're all aware that the reason why this is still on the table is because the board told us to keep it on the table. And if that's the decision they made or we made as a whole board, then that's what it is, right? It's not that necessarily the committee is one way or another on it, but that's the direction we were given. Supervisor Connor had another comment.
Just a couple on it. One, that's exactly why we're doing this, is the full board asked us to follow up with this. If we continue down the path, though, with the agreement, I think we need to behoove the advice of several people that have said that there are many things that we just don't have in here that need to be addressed. We're missing the boat, I think, on some of it. I think we need help on it. And what they have brought forward and a lot of the issues still need to be addressed. We cannot allow this to continue down the path without taking in what the requests are for what the issues are, addressing them, and ensure that they're in here, or else this really becomes kind of meaningless if we're not addressing all of the issues that need to be there. The other thing I just want to bring up, because of what Supervisor Shirley had mentioned too, is that although we do have additional funds every year at the end of the year, the county works with those funds are done in a reallocation towards what's called a KIP. And I'm saying this because we're leading people to believe that we have these tremendous amounts of money every year. And what this particular fund is designed for is those funds that are not spent within the budgetary alignments are spent for purposes that are one-time funding for things like park improvements, building a new roof on a building, or additional vehicles, or things that they're all necessities that have to be done that we prefer not to take out loans for. So that money goes to fund those things, and it keeps us so that we're not taking out additional loans to purchase all of these additional services. So we work and strive very hard to ensure these tax dollars are spent prudently. Thank you. So I just wanted to bring that up because it kind of led people to believe something different than what we do.
Yeah, they don't just get set aside for a rainy day or whatever. Any further discussion on this? Otherwise, I'm sure it'll be another discussion in the October committee meeting.
So, Mr. Chair,
or yeah, any comments or
if
change?
there's any changes or
Thank you,
feedback that the committee has that you'd like staff to relay to Excel, I kind of documented 3 things when we were going through the JDA earlier. One is that if there is a karst report, that it'd be submitted to the county. 2 would be to reword that duration of the contract text, and that to include past the project being decommissioned or removed, and that, so like our road use standards and stuff like that, to make sure that that would be clarified. And then to move the intervention paragraph, which is number 5, into the agreement section of the text. So we can get those 3 suggestions back to Excel. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other from the committee, but then in October at the Community Development Committee, we would bring a actual resolution forward for the vote by the committee at that October meeting. So, because we are getting pretty close to our time frame if they're still going to submit by the end of the year.
Supervisor Connor.
Don't have any direct input currently other than what's there, but I really strongly advise that we try to take some of this information that's coming from the people that are here reporting to us and telling us what the issues are, and taking a look at that. If we have to re-review the tapes or whatever we need to do to ensure that those things are being addressed. The other things I think we really need to look into is potentially, why don't we do some research, talk to the, is it Stevens Point, the university, Whitewater? I thought it was, anyway, I thought it was Stevens Point, because I talked to them. But we want to talk to them guys and maybe even give them tell them the scenario of what's going on and get some advice. See what these guys, they're the experts in the state. We need to try to pool our resources from anyone that can give us information that's going to give us the best way to make this work right for us. So I really think that should be an effort. The other effort is if we have people that are reviewing this and looking at this from a legal standpoint, to have them involved, have them give us feedback. That's what we need. We need to have the feedback. None of us here are experts in this field whatsoever. And the better we can be equipped to make good, sound decisions, that's what we need to do. So their help may be able to put us on track with which way we should, what path we need to take.
I was going to kind of come at this with a little bit different perspective here. I've heard a lot of comments from the public and other comments around this table raising suspicions about a company called Excel. I have never worked for them. That's my disclaimer. I don't have any personal connection to Excel. But if you are frustrated with Excel, anything you think you've heard, have heard, lack a response, the thing that would put a smile on their face is if we'd walk away from a JDA. A JDA is a method that the PSCW gives us to try and control at the local level what's going on at the local level. We may not like it. Celeste made that point. We may not like it. That's the method we have. So if I were a big developer and there were an organization like a county board that walked away from an opportunity to tell me how to run my business, I would be happy as a clam. I would think, great, I don't have to deal with these people. I can get on with my project, put all my chips on dealing with all the other things. So I offer that as a frame of reference, to not be so absolutist in our thinking, that it's this or that we can do both. And if there are things that we feel really are important that need to be addressed by the PSCW, and either because of deadlines or we couldn't get Excel to agree it, that's why we intervene. That is the way I've been thinking about this all along. I would love to find a piece of information that would allow me to sleep better at night and not have to think about this stuff and do less ChatGPT searches. But anyway, that's the end of that.
All right. Any other comments? I think we've it'll come back for sure, but it'll be discussed more then. All right. Agenda item 13, update on the Lake Malibu Dam drawdown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so the Lake Malibu Association has been working with Stantec over the last couple of years about potentially doing a dredging project on Lake Malibu because there was a bunch of sediment and that from an erosion control breach back between 2015 and 2019 when the Little Falls Dam was being worked on in Willow River State Park. Supposedly there was an erosion breach that washed a bunch of that sediment into the headwaters of Lake Malibu. After consideration and that for dredging, they decided that actually a lake drawdown might be a better option for the lake. And really what they're looking to do is move some of the sediment from the headwaters of the lake into the deeper portion of the lake, and that to improve navigability on the north end. And so they had submitted a drawdown application to the DNR in June, and we are a dam owner on the lake there before it goes into the St. Croix. And we have shared ownership with the town of Hudson, Village of North Hudson, and City of Hudson. All the municipalities and the county approved of a drawdown request, and that was 11 foot back in June. And then here about a month ago, they submitted an updated drawdown request of 7.5 feet. And so then there was a lot of public concern in that with that 7.5 foot drawdown. And so now the city of Hudson has asked the Lake Malibu Association and Stantec to provide more information and more monitoring, because a lot of the concerns that were raised were increased sedimentation going into the St. Croix, increased phosphorus loading going into the St. Croix. And so that is kind of where we're at. I talked with Mike Johnson, the Community Development Director with the city, and it'll be a joint partnership meeting, and that when they meet with Lake Malibu Association and Stantec. So we don't know a lot more information on that right now, but that's kind of where that project is at. They were planning to draw down in the fall here, and that has been tabled because the DNR drawdown process has a lot of specific dates for different aquatic invasive or aquatic species, some invasive, and the area and the reptiles and stuff that could be affected by a drawdown. So now it's postponed to at least 2026 drawdown. The county was going to take and work with our other dam owners and that to do a full dam inspection on it when the water was drawn down, and also improve some telecommunication and alarm equipment on the dam, and that when it was drawn down, just because there would be less risk and probably less cost. So that's where we're at.
Yep. Supervisor Rice, you have a comment?
Yeah, Jason, I know some of the people that have been closely involved in this, and they put a lot of work into trying to get this done. And of course, now they postponed it at least a year. I just would urge you to continue to work with the Lake Malibu Association and the DNR and all the other 4 entities that own the dam, and to look at it more holistically, because the people that live on the lake know that the source of some of the challenges they have is everything literally upstream. And so if we, as a collective group, can come up with something that gives the lake owners more confidence that whatever is decided regarding whether it's a drawdown, however they're going to deal with their current muck problem, that we're making decisions upstream that mitigate the risk of future disaster for them. A lot of money has been spent, a lot of money will be spent, and we want to make sure that we're being kind of proactive so that we don't have to spend a lot more collectively. So I'll look for ideas.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Gunner.
His first question, has Lake Malibu went through any measures to draw down the phosphorus issues? Have they went through any alum treatments or anything in the past? So
Not
this,
that I'm aware of, no.
okay. So one of the considerations, if you're taking contaminated material and then you're compounding it by pushing it further in, would it not be smarter to remove it versus to just redistribute it in the base? I know that it's more expensive, but on the other side, then you're piling more and more material that is potentially contaminated and making it more difficult to be able to control it for the future.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I do know that they've had Stantec as their consultant and their expert, and it was not feasible to do the dredging of it, so that's when they went to the drawdown method.
Yeah, to kind of add to that, the issue with dredging is you got to put the material somewhere.
Right.
And they don't, yeah, they don't have room to put the material anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually if they're dredging and that, they'll take and they'll set up some temporary cylinders on the shore and put all the dredge material into that cylinder, and that cylinder is kind of allows the water to penetrate out of it and drain back into the lake. And then that mitigates a lot of the aquatic invasive species risk of spreading it from water body to water body, even with transporting it. So, and of course, Lake Malibu is heavily developed all the way around it. And so I'm sure that could be one of the concerns, was where was that material going to be stored for a year while it was seeping back into the lake.
Anything else on this one? Otherwise, you'll probably see it again in 8 to 12 months or so. We'll move on to, that's the end of the business items. We'll move on to request for future agenda items, and you might want to take notes. Any requests for future agenda items? All right, no future agenda items, the first time. Scott got off scot-free. So as far as announcements, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this already, but this is my last regularly scheduled community development meeting. My last county board related meeting is the regularly scheduled full board meeting in October. Scott will be set, or Supervisor Connor will be set, since he's the vice chair, will be setting the agenda and setting the agenda for the next meeting. So if you want something on there, make sure to include him. And at that meeting, you will vote formally on someone to take the role of chair for the rest of the term, and if it is supervisor, and also the role of vice chair, depending on how the first one goes. I'm not gonna say anything more than that. Yeah, and then, yeah, and then any announcements that?
I've just got a couple. I just wanted to take and make the committee aware that staff have met with Croix Breeze and the manure transfer, and we will be receiving an updated nutrient management plan from them for those gallons. Also, we received some good news this week that we received a $10,000 groundwater monitoring grant, and that will evaluate the effectiveness of water treatment systems like a reverse osmosis system on removing nitrates from the water. So our department is working with public health on that grant, and that will be completed by July of 2026. We've got upholstered furniture, so couches, ottomans, recliners, and that next Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Olson's Sanitation in Somerset. So that's a new event for us. And our electronic event last week over at Baldwin Highway facility had 585 people attend. And then the next appliance collection event is October 8th at Baldwin Highway. That's what I've got.
And then obviously we have the work session next week. Any other announcements from the committee? Yeah, Supervisor Shirley.
Just a quick question, Jason. You said the couches and whatnot. Is there a cost to those if people are interested?
There is. There's a significant cost to the county to get rid of them, and it's $10 per item. So that's about a 50% cost share between the county and the property owner, and that for disposal of those items.
All right. Date of the next regular meeting, October 16th, 2025. Have fun. Otherwise, I'll see you, the rest of you next week. Thank you. We're adjourned.